A mafia boss who built an empire on silence receives a midnight call that shatters everything. The woman he once loved has collapsed in a hospital, and she brought a baby girl he never knew existed. But before Victor Kane can even process the truth, enemies who've hunted him for years discover his greatest weakness isn't power or territory. It's a daughter with his eyes and a woman who tried to protect them both by disappearing. Tonight, the fortress he built to keep the world out must become the only thing standing between his family and men who would destroy them all. If you're ready for a story where deadly secrets collide with brutal protection, where a man who trusted nothing but control must fight for everything he never knew he needed, stay with me until the end. Hit that like button and drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from so I can see how far this story travels. Victor Kane didn't sleep like ordinary men. Sleep for him was a tactical decision. 2 hours here, 3 hours there, always with one part of his mind alert to the shift in air pressure that meant someone had entered a room, the subtle click of a safety being released, the particular quality of silence that preceded violence. He'd trained himself over 15 years to wake at the smallest anomaly, and in those years he'd survived 7 assassination attempts, 3 coups within his own organization, and more betrayals than he bothered counting. So when his phone vibrated at 2:17 in the morning, Victor's eyes opened immediately, his hand already reaching for the weapon beneath his pillow before his fingers found the phone instead. The number on the screen was unfamiliar. Local area code, not one of his people. They all had designated ringtones, each one chosen for the specific kind of trouble they represented. This was just a generic buzz, the sound of the outside world trying to penetrate the fortress he'd built around himself. Victor almost didn't answer, almost let it go to voicemail, assuming it was a wrong number or some low-level threat too stupid to know that calling a man like Victor Kane in the middle of the night was a death sentence. But something stopped him. Some instinct honed by years of reading situations, of knowing when the usual rules didn't apply. He answered without speaking, waiting for whoever was on the other end to reveal themselves first. "Is this Victor Kane?" The voice was female, young, nervous, professional but fraying at the edges. "I'm calling from St. Catherine's Medical Center. I'm a nurse in the emergency department, and I need to confirm you're the emergency contact for Mila Hart." The name hit Victor like a fist to the sternum. Mila Hart. He sat up, every muscle in his body going taut. Around him, his bedroom remained dark except for the city lights filtering through bulletproof glass windows. His pulse, which rarely elevated above resting even in firefights, kicked up several notches. "What happened to her?" His voice came out harder than he intended, sharp enough that he heard the nurse's breath catch. "Sir, I can't discuss patient information unless I confirm your identity and your relationship to—" "What happened to her?" The nurse hesitated. Victor could hear other voices in the background, the chaos of an emergency room at night. Someone was crying, machines were beeping, the ordinary catastrophes of human fragility. "She collapsed," the nurse said finally. "She was brought in about 40 minutes ago. She's stable now, but she was unconscious when the paramedics found her, and she— Sir, there was a baby with her, a little girl. The child is fine, but Ms. Hart listed you as her emergency contact, and we need a baby." Victor's mind was racing, calculating, trying to make sense of information that didn't fit any pattern he recognized. Mila had disappeared 20 months ago. 20 months, 1 week, and 3 days, if he was being precise, which he always was. She'd vanished from his life as completely as if she'd never existed. No note, no explanation, no trace despite the considerable resources he'd devoted to finding her. He'd eventually stopped looking, told himself it was better this way, that she'd been smart to run, to get out before his world consumed her the way it consumed everything else. But a baby. "How old?" The question came out rough. "Sir, I really can't—" "How old?" Another pause. Then quietly, "The paramedics estimated around 8 or 9 months. Sir, Ms. Hart is asking for you. She's very insistent that we contact you, and given her condition, we thought, I'll be there in 15 minutes. Victor was already moving, pulling on clothes with the efficient speed of a man who had dressed in the dark during countless emergencies. "Don't let her leave. Don't let anyone near her except hospital staff. Do you understand?" Sir, I'm not sure I can. Listen to me very carefully. Victor's voice dropped to the register he used when he needed people to understand their lives depended on following instructions. Mila Hart is in danger. Anyone who approaches her who isn't hospital personnel is a threat. If you see anyone suspicious, if anyone tries to visit her, if anyone asks questions, you call security immediately. And you call me. Do you have something to write with? Yes. Victor rattled off a number, not his personal cell, but a line that went directly to Marcus, his head of security. That's a direct line to my security team. You call that number if anything happens before I arrive. Anything. Do you understand? Yes, sir. The nurse's voice had changed, taking on the sharpness of someone who just realized this wasn't an ordinary situation. I understand. Victor ended the call and stood in the center of his bedroom, his mind moving through contingencies at lightning speed. A baby. 8 or 9 months old. He counted backward. 20 months since Mila disappeared. 9 months of pregnancy. That left approximately 11 months between when she would have conceived and when she vanished. The timeline fit perfectly, which meant if the child was his and the cold certainty settling in his chest told him she was, Mila had been pregnant when she disappeared, had known she was carrying his child and had chosen to run rather than tell him. The thought should have made him angry. Victor's world ran on control, on knowing every variable, on eliminating surprises before they became threats. Mila keeping this from him was a betrayal of the highest order. But beneath the strategic assessment, beneath the automatic calculation of threat levels and security protocols, something else stirred. Something he'd locked away 20 months ago and had been carefully, methodically, not thinking about ever since. Victor crossed to his closet and pulled out a specific jacket, the one with Kevlar panels sewn into the lining, subtle enough to avoid notice but strong enough to stop most small-caliber rounds. He checked the Glock holstered at his spine, verified the extra magazine in his pocket, and grabbed his keys. 14 minutes to the hospital. Less if he ignored traffic laws, which he fully intended to do. He was halfway to the door when his phone buzzed again. Marcus, his head of security, calling from the monitoring station in the basement of Victor's building. We caught the call from the hospital, Marcus said without preamble. Marcus had been with Victor for 12 years, ex-military, ex-intelligence, and one of the few people Victor trusted with his life. I'm pulling traffic cameras now to map the fastest route. And boss, I'm sending Rico and James to the hospital ahead of you. No. Victor's response was immediate. I go alone first. That's not protocol. Unknown situation, potential threat. You don't. I go alone, Victor repeated, his tone making it clear this wasn't negotiable. But I want you tracking me. And I want a team on standby 5 minutes out. If I call for them, they move immediately. Marcus was silent for a moment. Then, this is about the woman from before, the one who disappeared. It wasn't a question. Marcus had been there 20 months ago, had seen Victor in the aftermath of Mila's disappearance, had watched Victor systematically search for her, then abruptly stop, had never asked questions because that was the kind of man Marcus was. She has a baby, Victor said. The timeline suggests the child is mine. Another pause, longer this time. Understood. I'll have the team ready. And boss, if this is a trap, then I'll need you to handle the cleanup. But I don't think it is. Victor was already moving down the hallway of his penthouse, past rooms designed for security rather than comfort. Mila wouldn't use a child as bait. That's not who she is. People change in 20 months. Not that much. Victor stepped into his private elevator, the one that bypassed the building's main system and dropped directly to the underground garage. Keep this quiet. I don't want anyone else knowing about this until I understand the situation. Done. I'll monitor the channel. Be careful. The line went dead, and Victor was alone with his thoughts as the elevator descended. Mila Hart had entered his life 2 years ago like a summer storm, sudden, overwhelming, and impossible to prepare for. She'd been a consultant brought in by one of his legitimate business fronts, hired to redesign the security system for a hotel chain he owned. She wasn't supposed to have access to anything sensitive, wasn't supposed to be anywhere near his real operations. But Mila was brilliant and curious, and she'd noticed things, patterns in the staff rotations, irregularities in the booking systems, the way certain guests never appeared on official records. Instead of reporting what she'd found or running scared, she'd confronted Victor directly. He still remembered that conversation. She'd walked into his office, past his secretary, past his guards, as if she had every right to be there, and had calmly laid out everything she'd discovered, not as a threat, not as blackmail, but as a simple statement of facts. "You're using the hotel to move money," she'd said, sitting across from his desk like they were discussing quarterly earnings. "Probably drugs too, based on the guest patterns. I assume the staff you've placed in key positions are your people." Victor had studied her, trying to determine if she was brave or suicidal. "And what do you plan to do with this information?" "Nothing." She'd met his eyes without flinching. "I'm not a cop, I'm not a crusader, and I have no interest in getting killed for stumbling onto something I wasn't supposed to see. But I thought you should know your system has vulnerabilities. If I could spot this, someone else could too." She'd been right. Victor had known the hotel operation had weaknesses, had been planning to address them. But Mila's assessment was sharper and more comprehensive than anything his own people had provided. "Why tell me?" he'd asked. "Why not just finish your contract and leave?" Mila had smiled, and it had been like watching sunlight break through storm clouds. "Because I don't like leaving work half-finished. And because I think you're smart enough to know that having someone around who can spot your blind spots is valuable." She'd been right about that too. What was supposed to be a professional relationship had evolved into something else over the following months. Mila had proven herself invaluable, not just in security consulting, but in reading situations, in understanding the human elements that Victor's more tactical people often missed. She'd been present during negotiations, offering insights into body language and micro-expressions that had saved Victor from several bad deals. And somewhere in those long nights working side by side, reviewing security footage, redesigning protocols, the professional boundary had dissolved. Victor hadn't meant to let her in, hadn't meant to care about anyone enough that their absence could leave a void. He'd built his entire life on the principle that attachment was weakness, that caring about someone gave your enemies a target. But Mila had slipped past his defenses with the same quiet competence she brought to everything else. She never demanded more than he could give, never pushed for commitment or promises. She existed in his world without trying to change it, accepted what he was without trying to reform him. For 6 months, it had been perfect as anything in Victor's life could be. Then she'd disappeared. No warning, no explanation. One day she was there, sitting across from him at breakfast, discussing plans to upgrade the security system at another property. The next day, she was gone. Her apartment cleared out, her phone disconnected, every trace of her existence methodically erased. Victor had searched, had used every resource at his disposal to find her, had assumed she'd been taken, that some enemy had discovered she mattered to him and had used her as leverage. But there'd been no ransom demand, no body, no evidence of foul play, just absence. Eventually, Victor had forced himself to accept the obvious conclusion. Mila had chosen to leave, had decided that life with him, or anywhere near him, wasn't what she wanted. It had hurt in ways Victor hadn't experienced since he was a child, since before he'd learned to armor himself against feeling anything at all. But he'd locked that pain away, had rebuilt his walls, had gone back to the business of being Victor Kane, untouchable, unbreakable, alone. And now, 20 months later, Mila was in a hospital bed, and there was a baby. His baby, if the timeline was right. If the certainty settling into his bones wasn't lying. The elevator opened into the garage, and Victor strode to his car, a black BMW M5, fast enough to get him where he needed to go, armored enough to withstand small arms fire, unremarkable enough not to draw attention. He drove through the city like a man who owned it, which in many ways he did. Traffic laws were suggestions when you controlled enough of the police force to make tickets disappear. Red lights were advisory when you knew which intersections had cameras and which didn't. 12 minutes after leaving his penthouse, Victor pulled into the emergency entrance of St. Catherine's Medical Center. The hospital was a mid-sized facility in a decent neighborhood, not the kind of place he'd have expected Mila to end up. If she'd been living in the city all this time, she'd done a remarkable job staying invisible. Victor's network was extensive. If she'd used her real name, gotten a real job, left any kind of paper trail, he would have found her. which meant she'd been living off the grid, using cash, false names, staying away from anywhere she might be recognized, running, hiding, from him or from something else. Victor parked in a space marked for emergency vehicles. He'd deal with any complaints later, and walked through the automatic doors into the fluorescent chaos of the ER. The nurse who'd called him was easy to spot. Young, probably mid-20s, with dark circles under her eyes that spoke of a long shift. She was standing near the main desk, her attention fixed on the entrance, watching for him. She recognized him immediately. Victor saw it in the way her eyes widened slightly, the way her posture straightened. He had that effect on people, something in the way he moved, the way he occupied space, that marked him as dangerous even in civilian clothes. "Mr. Kane?" She approached cautiously, keeping her voice low. "I'm Sarah Chen, the nurse who called you." "Where is she?" "Room 7, but sir, before you go in, I need to—" Victor was already moving. The nurse hurried to keep up, leading him past the main waiting area, through a set of double doors that required badge access, down a hallway that smelled of antiseptic and fear. "She's stable," Sarah was saying, her words tumbling out quickly. When she came in, she was unconscious, showing signs of severe exhaustion and dehydration. "We've got her on IV fluids, and she's responding well. But Mr. Kane, she's been asking for you constantly since she woke up. She's very agitated, very concerned about the baby." "Where's the child?" Victor's focus sharpened. If there was a baby, there was a vulnerability, and vulnerabilities needed to be secured. "With her. We didn't want to separate them given Miss Hart's distress levels. The baby appears healthy, but we'd like to run some tests if—" They'd reached room 7. Through the small window in the door, Victor could see a bed, monitors, the standard emergency room setup. And in the bed, propped up against pillows with an IV line running into her arm, was Mila. She looked different. Thinner than he remembered, her face drawn with exhaustion, dark circles shadowing her eyes. Her hair, which she'd always worn in a sleek professional style, was pulled back in a messy ponytail. She was wearing a hospital gown, and in her arms, wrapped in a pink blanket, was a baby. Victor's hand was on the door handle when he saw the child's face. Dark curls, a serious expression, even in sleep. Features that were still forming but already showed the sharp bone structure that Victor saw in the mirror every morning. His daughter. Because there was no question, no doubt, no possibility that this child belonged to anyone else. The certainty of it hit him like a physical blow. He pushed open the door. Mila's head snapped up at the sound. Her eyes, those gray eyes that had haunted him for 20 months, locked onto his, and he saw fear there, but also relief, and something else he couldn't quite identify. "Victor." His name came out as barely more than a whisper. "You came." He stepped into the room, letting the door close behind him. The nurse stayed outside, giving them privacy. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Victor stood at the foot of the bed, his eyes moving between Mila and the sleeping baby, his mind processing information at high speed while his emotions, carefully controlled, ruthlessly suppressed, threatened to break free. "She's yours," Mila said finally, her voice stronger now. She adjusted her hold on the baby, protective and careful. "Her name is Lily. She's 8 months old. And before you ask, yes, I knew I was pregnant when I left. Yes, I kept it from you intentionally. And no, I didn't come back because I wanted to. I came back because I had no choice." Victor moved closer to the bed, his movements controlled and deliberate. "Explain." Mila's laugh was bitter and short. Always straight to business. "God, I'd forgotten how much I—" She stopped herself, shook her head. "I left because I was pregnant and terrified. Terrified of what your world would do to a child. Terrified of the enemies you have. The people who would use a baby as leverage against you. I thought I could raise her somewhere safe. Somewhere far away from all of this." "Where did you go?" "Does it matter?" Mila's grip on Lily tightened. "I was careful. I used different names, paid cash for everything, stayed off the grid. I thought I was safe. I thought we were safe. But you weren't." It wasn't a question. Victor could read the truth in the fear haunting her eyes, in the way she kept glancing at the door as if expecting someone to burst through it. "No." Mila's voice cracked. Someone found us. I don't know how, I don't know who, but 3 days ago, someone left a message on my door, just a note that said, "We know about the baby." I grabbed Lily and ran. I've been moving constantly, trying to stay ahead of whoever's following us. But today I couldn't anymore. My body gave out. Victor's mind was already cataloging threats, running through lists of enemies who might have discovered Lily's existence. The list was extensive. He'd made a lot of enemies in 15 years, and most of them would love to have leverage against him. Why call me? The question came out harder than he intended. You spent 20 months keeping her hidden from me. Why involve me now? Mila met his eyes, and he saw steel beneath the exhaustion. Because whoever's hunting us knows about you. The note didn't just say, "We know about the baby." It said, "We know about Kane's baby," which means hiding isn't an option anymore. If they know she's yours, then the only person who can protect her is you. She paused, then added quietly, "And because despite everything, despite all my fears about your world, I know you'll die before you let anything happen to her. That's who you are. That's what you do." Victor looked down at Lily, at the tiny person sleeping peacefully in her mother's arms, completely unaware that her existence had just rewritten the fundamental equations of his life. A daughter. His daughter. Every instinct Victor had was screaming at him to secure the perimeter, to move them somewhere safe, to identify the threat and eliminate it with extreme prejudice. But beneath the tactical response, something else was rising, a fierce primal protectiveness he'd never felt before. This child was his. This tiny, vulnerable person carried his blood, his DNA, his legacy. And someone had threatened her. That was unacceptable. Who else knows? Victor's voice was cold, clinical. About Lily. About me being the father. Who did you tell? No one. Mila's response was immediate. I didn't tell anyone, Victor. I was completely alone for the entire pregnancy, for the birth, for everything. I didn't want anyone to know because I thought that would keep her safe. Then how did they find out? I don't know. Frustration leaked into Mila's voice. I was so careful. I never used your name, never mentioned you to anyone. The only connection was the emergency contact form I filled out tonight when I was admitted, and that was because I was desperate and terrified, and... She stopped abruptly, her face going pale. What? Victor's attention sharpened. What did you just remember? Mila's hand was shaking as she raised it to her mouth. Oh God! Oh God, Victor! There was someone. One person I told months ago when I was pregnant and scared and needed someone to talk to. I swore him to secrecy, made him promise he wouldn't tell anyone. Who? My brother. The words came out in a horrified whisper. I called my brother Ethan. He's the only family I have left, and I thought I could trust him. I told him I was pregnant, told him the father was someone dangerous and that I needed to disappear. I didn't give him your name, but I gave him enough details that if someone asked the right questions... She trailed off, and Victor could see her mind working through the implications, arriving at the same conclusion he'd already reached. Your brother sold you out. Victor's voice was flat, emotionless. Inside, rage was building, cold, focused, deadly. He gave someone the information they needed to find you. No. Mila shook her head violently, making Lily stir in her arms. No, Ethan wouldn't. He's weak, he's made bad choices, but he wouldn't deliberately put me in danger. He wouldn't... People do a lot of things when the price is right. Victor pulled out his phone, already texting Marcus. What's your brother's full name? Victor, please, you can't just... His name, Mila. She stared at him, and he watched the internal war play out across her face. Loyalty to her brother versus protection of their daughter. The outcome was never really in doubt. Ethan Hart, he lives in the city, works as a bartender at a place called the Copper Room downtown. Victor sent the information to Marcus with instructions to locate Ethan and bring him in for questioning. Not gently. Then he looked at Mila, at the fear and exhaustion weighing her down, at the baby sleeping peacefully despite the danger swirling around her. We're leaving, he said. Now. I'm taking you and Lily somewhere safe. The hospital wants to keep me overnight for observation, and Lily should really be... I have doctors on my payroll who can check you both more thoroughly than anyone here. Victor was already moving, checking the hallway through the door's window. You came to me for protection, Mila. That means you follow my protocols. We leave now before whoever sent that message realizes where you are. How would they even know I'm here? Because if your brother is the leak, then whoever he's talking to will be watching for any activity linked to your name. Hospital admissions are easy to monitor if you have the right access. Victor pulled out his phone again, calling a different number. Which means we have maybe an hour before this location is compromised. The call connected. Rico, I need the secondary vehicle at St. Catherine's ER entrance in 3 minutes. Black SUV, tinted windows, full armor package. And I need a clean exit route mapped to the West Side safe house. He hung up and turned back to Mila. Can you walk? I think so. I'm weak, but I can. Then get dressed. We're leaving in 4 minutes. Mila stared at him for a moment, then seemed to make a decision. She carefully transferred Lily to the bed, surrounding the baby with pillows, and stood shakily. Victor saw her wince as the IV pulled, and he reached over and calmly removed it himself, pressing gauze against the insertion site. You're going to get me in trouble with the nurses, Mila said, but there was no real protest in her voice. She was already moving to the small closet where her clothes were stored. I'll make a donation large enough that they'll forgive anything. Victor kept his attention split between Mila and the hallway outside. How long has it been since you've eaten a real meal? I don't remember. 2 days? 3? You're not just exhausted, you're malnourished. Victor's jaw tightened. The thought of Mila struggling alone, running and hiding with a baby while he'd been here in the city, completely unaware, ignited something dark in his chest. That changes now. Mila pulled on jeans and a t-shirt, moving carefully. Victor, I need you to understand something. I didn't keep Lily from you to hurt you. I did it because I loved her too much to risk her growing up in your world. And now she doesn't have a choice. Victor's voice was harder than he intended. Neither do you. The moment you called me, the moment you listed me as emergency contact, you brought her into my world whether you wanted to or not. I know. Mila's voice was small. That's what terrifies me. Victor crossed to the bed and looked down at Lily. The baby was waking up, her dark eyes blinking open, focusing on him with the serious attention of someone much older than 8 months. He reached down and carefully lifted her into his arms, feeling the weight of her, the warmth, the reality of her existence. Lily studied his face, her expression solemn. Then, impossibly, she smiled. Something shifted in Victor's chest, something fundamental and irreversible. Nothing will happen to her, he said, speaking to Mila but unable to look away from his daughter's face. I don't care who's coming for her. I don't care what it costs. I will protect her with everything I have. I know, Mila said quietly. That's why I called you. Victor's phone buzzed. Marcus confirming that Rico was in position outside. Time to move. Victor kept Lily in his arms as he headed for the door. Behind him, he heard Mila gathering her few belongings. They stepped into the hallway, and Victor immediately clocked 3 potential threats. 2 men in visitors' clothes who were paying too much attention, 1 person at the far end of the corridor who turned away too quickly. His instinct screamed a warning, but it was too late to go back. They were committed now. Victor lengthened his stride, keeping Lily secure against his chest, while his other hand drifted toward the weapon at his spine. Beside him, Mila was struggling to keep up, her weakened state obvious. Stay close, he murmured. Don't stop walking no matter what happens. They were 10 feet from the exit when one of the men stepped into their path. Victor Kane, the man said, his smile sharp and wrong. Been a long time. Silas sends his regards. And Victor knew, with the cold certainty that had kept him alive through 15 years of war, that the hour he'd estimated was optimistic. The enemy was already here. Victor's response was instantaneous. He shifted Lily to his left arm, positioning his body between her and the threat, while his right hand moved beneath his jacket. Step aside. His voice was cold enough to freeze blood. Now. The man's smile widened. He was tall, scarred, with the build of someone who'd spent years doing violence. Behind him, his partner had closed in, blocking the exit completely. See? That's not going to work for us. Silas has been waiting a long time to have a conversation with you, Kane. And now that we know about your little secret... His eyes flicked to Lily. Well, he's very interested in meeting the whole family. Victor could feel Mila pressing against his back, her breathing rapid and shallow. Could sense the other people in the hallway beginning to notice the confrontation, some backing away, others pulling out phones. In approximately 30 seconds, hospital security would respond. That gave him a very narrow window. Last chance, Victor said. Victor shouts. Walk away. Can't do that, boss. We have orders. Victor moved. His gun cleared leather in a fraction of a second, the suppressor already attached. The weapon aimed directly at the first man's center mass. At the same time, he stepped backward, forcing Mila toward a door marked Staff Only, to their right. Inside, he told her. Lock it behind you. Don't open it for anyone but me. Victor. Now, Mila. She grabbed the handle and pushed through. Victor tracked both men with his weapon, watching their hands, their eyes, calculating the distance and angles. Lily was completely silent in his arms, her small hand gripping his shirt. The first man raised his hand slowly, but his smile never faltered. You going to shoot us in a hospital hallway, Kane? That's messy, even for you. Lots of witnesses, lots of cameras. I've cleaned up messier situations. Victor's finger rested lightly on the trigger. But you're right. Gunfire would complicate things. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to turn around and walk out of this hospital. You're going to tell Silas Varga that if he comes near my daughter again, I'll dismantle his entire organization piece by piece and leave him alive just long enough to watch everything he's built burn to the ground. The second man laughed. Big talk from someone holding a baby. You really think you're in a position to make threats? I'm always in a position to make threats. Victor's eyes were flat, emotionless. The question is whether you're smart enough to take them seriously. The hallway had cleared now. People had scattered, nurses were frantically calling security, and Victor could hear footsteps approaching from multiple directions. The situation was degrading fast. The first man's expression shifted, calculation replacing the mockery. Silas knew you'd react like this. He told us you'd get protective, get sloppy. That's why he sent us. We're not here to hurt the kid, Kane. We're here to deliver a message. Then deliver it. Silas knows about the baby, knows about the woman, knows they've been hiding from you for almost 2 years. The man's voice dropped. And he knows something else, something about why she ran, something you don't know yet. Victor's grip on his weapon didn't waver, but his focus sharpened. Keep talking. Not here, not like this. The man gestured around the hallway. You want answers? You want to know who told us about your daughter? Meet Silas tonight, midnight, the old warehouse district on the waterfront. Come alone, and he'll tell you everything. That's not how this works. It is now. The man was already backing toward the exit, his partner moving with him. You've got 12 hours to decide what matters more, your pride or the truth. See you at midnight, Kane, or don't. But either way, we know where to find your girls now. They disappeared through the exit doors before Victor could respond. He held his position for 3 more seconds, verifying they were actually leaving, then holstered his weapon and turned to the staff door where Mila had taken shelter. He knocked twice, a specific pattern. It's me. The door opened immediately. Mila's face was pale, her eyes wide with fear. What happened? I heard voices, but I couldn't make out. We're leaving. Different exit. Victor was already moving, guiding her down the staff corridor toward a service entrance he'd memorized when he'd first entered the building. It was instinct, mapping exits and escape routes everywhere he went. That instinct was about to save them valuable seconds. His phone was already in his hand, speed dialing Rico. Change of plans, east service entrance, 60 seconds, and we've got company. 2 men, tall, armed, heading to the main exit. I want them followed but not engaged. Find out where they go. Copy that, boss. They emerged into a loading area where hospital supplies were delivered. The air was cold, carrying the promise of rain. Victor scanned the area, checking shadows and sight lines, before spotting the black SUV pulling up. Rico was behind the wheel, a solid presence with military precision. He had the back door open before Victor reached the vehicle. In, Victor said to Mila, and she scrambled inside without argument. Victor slid in beside her, still holding Lily, and Rico accelerated before the door was fully closed. West Side Safe House? Rico asked, his eyes constantly moving between the road and the mirrors. No, They'll expect that. Victor's mind was racing through options. Take us to the Blackwood property, the estate. Rico's eyes flicked to the rearview mirror, meeting Victor's gaze. Boss, that's not set up for defense. If they're tracking you, they already know where I live. They already know about Lily. Hiding in a safe house just delays the inevitable. Victor adjusted his hold on the baby, who was watching the streetlights flash past with solemn attention. We go to the estate. I want full security protocols activated within the hour, and get Marcus on the line. Rico made the call while navigating through late-night traffic. The city blurred past, familiar streets that Victor had controlled for years suddenly feeling different with Lily in his arms and Mila beside him. Mila was trembling, her hands clenched in her lap. Those men, they knew about her. They knew exactly where to find us. They were waiting for us. Victor's voice was grim. Which means either they've been monitoring the hospital admissions, or someone tipped them off that you'd contacted me. My brother, Mila's voice cracked. God, Victor, what if Ethan actually... We'll know soon. Victor's phone lit up with an incoming call. Marcus. Talk to me. Found him, Marcus said without preamble. Ethan Hart, currently at his apartment, not at work like he's supposed to be. And boss, he's got company. 2 vehicles parked outside his building, both registered to shell companies that trace back to Silas Varga's network. Victor's jaw tightened. How long have they been there? Based on parking enforcement records, about 6 hours, since mid-afternoon. Which meant they'd been sitting on Ethan before Mila even collapsed, before she'd called Victor. They'd been waiting, watching, ready to move the moment Mila made contact. Beside him, Mila had her hand pressed to her mouth, her eyes squeezed shut. She'd heard every word through the phone's speaker. Bring him in, Victor said. I don't care about the witnesses. I don't care about collateral damage. I want Ethan Hart in front of me within 2 hours. You want him intact? Victor glanced at Mila, saw the anguish on her face, and made a decision. Alive and able to talk. Beyond that, I don't care what condition he's in. He ended the call and turned to Mila. I need you to understand something. If your brother sold you out, if he put Lily in danger for money or to settle a debt, there's no protection I can offer him. He becomes a problem that needs to be solved. He's my brother. Tears were streaming down Mila's face now. He's the only family I have left. You have a daughter now. She's your family. She's the only thing that matters. Mila looked at Lily, sleeping peacefully in Victor's arms, and something broke in her expression. I know that. But Ethan, he's not a bad person. He's just weak, and he makes terrible choices, and I thought if I kept my distance, if I never involved him in anything important, you told him you were pregnant. You told him the father was dangerous. That was involving him. Victor's tone wasn't cruel, just factual. And if he was already in debt to Varga, if he was already compromised, then that information became currency. The SUV turned onto a private road, leaving the city proper behind. The Blackwood estate was 15 miles outside the urban center, a sprawling property that Victor had acquired 5 years ago and converted into a fortress. 30 acres of land, high walls, state-of-the-art security systems, and enough firepower stored in the armory to outfit a small army. It was where Victor went when he needed absolute security, when he needed to make a stand. The gates opened automatically as they approached, recognizing the vehicle's signature. Rico drove through, and Victor watched the gates close behind them with mechanical precision. I want full lockdown protocols, Victor told Rico as they pulled up to the main house. Motion sensors active on all approaches, cameras on thermal mode, and I want a minimum of 12 men on the perimeter by dawn. Already called it in, Rico said. Marcus is coordinating now. We'll have full coverage within 90 minutes. Victor carried Lily out of the vehicle, Mila following close behind. The estate's main house was dark except for the exterior security lighting, a massive stone structure that looked more like a fortress than a home. Which was the point. Inside, the air was cool and still. Victor hadn't been here in months, had been using the property primarily for storage and as an emergency fallback position. Now it was going to become a home, at least temporarily. Upstairs, he told Mila. 3rd door on the right. It's a suite with an attached room that we can set up for Lily. There are supplies in the closet, including basics for a baby. I had them stocked when I first acquired the property. Standard emergency preparation. Mila stared at him. You keep baby supplies in your safe house? I keep everything in my safe houses. You never know what you might need. Victor was already moving through the house, checking rooms, verifying security panels. Get some rest. We have a few hours before things get complicated. More complicated than they already are? Mila's laugh was slightly hysterical. Victor, we just fled a hospital. There are men hunting us. My brother might be working for your enemies, and you're talking about going to some meeting at midnight. I'm not going to the meeting. Victor turned to face her, his expression hard. That's what they want. They want me isolated, distracted, focused on hunting for answers instead of protecting what matters. I'm not playing their game. Then what are we doing? We're fortifying our position. We're gathering intelligence. And when your brother arrives, we're getting answers. Victor's phone buzzed with an incoming message. He glanced at it, then looked back at Mila. Marcus found something, security footage from your brother's apartment building. You should see this. He pulled up the video on his phone and held it so Mila could watch. The footage was grainy but clear enough. Ethan Hart, leaving his apartment 3 hours ago, getting into a car with 2 men. Men who matched the description of the ones who'd confronted Victor at the hospital. Mila's hand flew to her mouth. No, he wouldn't. Keep watching. The video continued. Showed Ethan getting out of the car 20 minutes later, his face pale and terrified. Showed him being escorted back to his apartment by the same 2 men. Showed the way he kept looking over his shoulder, the way his hands were shaking. He's scared, Mila whispered. They're threatening him. Or he made a deal he regrets. Victor pocketed his phone. Either way, he gave them information. The question is whether it was voluntary or coerced. A door opened downstairs and Victor's hand moved to his weapon automatically before he recognized Marcus's footsteps. Boss, Marcus called up, we've got a situation. Victor handed Lily to Mila. The baby was still sleeping, impossibly peaceful, and headed downstairs. Marcus was in the main security room, multiple screens showing different angles of the estate's perimeter. What am I looking at? Marcus pointed to one of the screens. Thermal imaging picked up movement on the north side, just outside the wall. 3 signatures holding position in the tree line. They've been there for 10 minutes. Recognition? Not yet, but they're equipped. I'm seeing what looks like long-range optics, possibly weapons. Victor studied the screen, his mind calculating odds and options. They followed us from the hospital. Likely. Rico took evasive action, but if they had multiple teams positioned around the city, they could have picked us up during the route. Victor's expression darkened, which means Varga has more resources in play than we anticipated. How many men do we have on site right now? 4, including me and Rico. The others are en route, but we're looking at another hour before we're at full strength. Pull everyone back to the house. Tight perimeter, overlapping fields of fire. If they're just watching, let them watch. But if they move on the property, I want them neutralized immediately. Marcus nodded and started issuing orders into his radio. Victor returned upstairs to find Mila pacing the hallway, Lily awake now and fussing in her arms. She's hungry, Mila said, her voice tight with stress. I haven't been able to feed her properly since yesterday. I've been too dehydrated and exhausted. There's formula in the supply closet. I'll get it. Victor moved past her, his mind splitting focus between the immediate tactical situation and the domestic crisis unfolding. It was disorienting, operating on both levels simultaneously. He returned with formula and bottles, watching as Mila prepared them with practiced efficiency despite her shaking hands. Lily latched onto the bottle immediately, drinking with focused intensity. We have watchers on the perimeter, Victor said quietly. They're not moving yet, but they're positioned for surveillance, possibly for an assault. Mila's eyes went wide. Here? They found us here already? They followed us from the hospital, but this property is defensible. We can hold them off until reinforcements arrive. And then what? Mila's voice rose. Victor, I didn't bring Lily back into your life so we could hide in a fortress while your enemies lay siege. I brought her back because I thought you could protect her, but if your protection means living under constant threat, it means living. Victor cut her off, his tone sharp. You came back because you couldn't run anymore, because hiding didn't work. At least here, we control the battlefield. Lily finished the bottle and immediately started crying, a high, distressed sound that cut through the tension. Mila tried to soothe her, rocking and shushing, but the baby's cries only intensified. "She needs to sleep," Mila said desperately. "She needs a proper bed, a quiet room. Not this. The nursery is set up." Victor took Lily from Mila's arms, feeling the baby's distress vibrate through her small body. "Show me where." Mila led him to the room adjacent to the suite. Someone, probably Marcus, anticipating needs, had already assembled a crib, arranged blankets, set up a changing table. The basics of infant care, military efficient and functional. Victor laid Lily down carefully, watching as she continued to cry, her face red and scrunched with misery. He'd faced down armed assassins with more composure than he felt in this moment. Confronted with a crying baby, he had no idea how to comfort. "She doesn't know you," Mila said softly, moving to stand beside him. "She's in a strange place with strange people, and she's scared. Then help her not be scared." Mila picked up Lily, held her close, and began humming something soft and wordless. Gradually, the crying subsided into hiccups, then into silence as the baby's eyes drifted closed. Victor watched, feeling something unfamiliar tighten in his chest. This was his daughter. This tiny person who didn't know him, who had spent 8 months of her life completely unaware of his existence. And now she was here, in his world, in danger because of who he was. "I never wanted this for her," Mila whispered, still holding Lily. "I never wanted her to know this life. But she's here now, and we deal with what is, not what we wished for." Victor moved to the window, checking sight lines, calculating fields of fire. "Get some rest, Mila, both of you. When Ethan arrives, I'm going to need you present for the conversation." "What are you going to do to him?" "I'm going to get the truth, whatever that takes." Mila carefully laid Lily in the crib, tucking blankets around her with maternal precision. "He's my brother, Victor. Please remember that." "I remember everything." Victor turned from the window. "Including the fact that his actions, whether willing or coerced, have put your daughter in the crosshairs of one of the most dangerous men in this city. That's not something I forget or forgive easily." He left before Mila could respond, heading back downstairs to the security room where Marcus was coordinating defensive positions. "Status? Perimeter team is in position. The watchers outside haven't moved, but we picked up radio chatter. They're waiting for something. For me to make a move. For backup to arrive. For dawn." Victor studied the screens. "What's our timeline on Ethan Hart?" 30 minutes. The team had to move carefully. Varga's people were still sitting on his apartment. There was a confrontation. Casualties? 2 of theirs. Wounded, not dead. We kept it quiet, but it's going to raise alarms when they don't check in, which meant the timeline was compressing. Varga would know his surveillance team had been hit, would know Victor had moved against Ethan, would accelerate whatever plan he had in motion. Victor's phone rang. Unknown number, but he recognized the pattern, a routing through multiple relay points designed to hide the caller's location. He answered. "Varga." "Kane." Silas Varga's voice was smooth, cultured, carrying the accent of old money and older violence. "I hear you've been busy tonight. Hospital visits, security teams, taking my men's calls. You're more active than you've been in months. You made a mistake when you threatened my daughter." "Ah, so you've confirmed it then. The child is yours." "I had suspected, but having confirmation makes things so much clearer." Varga's tone shifted, becoming almost conversational. "She's beautiful, Victor. Dark hair like yours. I imagine she'll grow up to have your eyes too. Such a shame she's caught in the middle of all this unpleasantness." Victor's grip on the phone tightened. "If you touch her—" "I don't want to touch her, Victor. I want to use her. There's a difference." Varga paused. "I assume you're wondering how I found out about her. Would you like to know?" "I already know. Ethan Hart." "Partially correct. Young Ethan did provide some valuable information, but he wasn't my primary source. No, I learned about your daughter from someone much closer to home. Someone who's been feeding me information about your operations for the past 6 months." Victor felt ice settle into his veins. A traitor. Inside his organization. Close enough to know about Mila, about the search he'd conducted after she disappeared. "Impossible. My people are vetted, monitored. Everyone has a price, Victor. Everyone has a weakness. You of all people should know that." Varga laughed. "But I'm not calling to gloat. I'm calling to offer you a deal. Come to the meeting. Midnight, the waterfront. Come alone, and I'll tell you who the traitor is. I'll give you the name, the evidence, everything you need to clean your own house. In exchange for what? In exchange for you walking away. Leave the city, take your little family, and disappear. I get your territory, your operations, everything you've built. You get your life and theirs. It's a generous offer, considering I could simply eliminate all three of you and take what I want anyway. Victor's mind was racing, analyzing the offer from every angle. It was too generous, too clean, which meant Varga had another play waiting, another piece moving on the board that Victor couldn't see yet. I'll think about it, Victor said finally. You have until midnight. After that, my patience ends and things get very messy. Varga ended the call. Marcus had heard the entire conversation through the security room's speakers. He's lying about the traitor. It's a distraction. Maybe, or maybe he's telling the truth and using it as bait. Victor set his phone down. Either way, we need to assume there's a leak, which means we operate on minimal trust protocols until we identify it. That limits our options significantly. It keeps us alive. Victor checked his watch. 4 hours until midnight. How long until we're at full defensive strength? 40 minutes for the next wave. Go to 2 hours for complete lockdown. We might not have 2 hours. Victor pulled up building schematics on one of the monitors. If Varga has people inside my organization, he has information on this property. He knows our defensive capabilities, our blind spots, our response protocols. So we change them. New positions, new overlapping fields, random patrol patterns. Do it. Victor turned as he heard footsteps on the stairs. Mila, looking exhausted and frightened. Lily? Sleeping, finally. Mila wrapped her arms around herself. I heard shouting down here. What happened? Varga called. He's offering a deal. We leave the city. He gets our territory. Then let's take it. Mila's response was immediate. Victor, if he's offering us a way out, we should... It's a trap. If I meet him at midnight, I'm not walking away alive. And if I run, he'll hunt us anyway. Men like Varga don't make generous offers out of kindness. Then what do we do? Before Victor could answer, Marcus's radio crackled. Boss, we've got movement. The Watchers are repositioning, and we're picking up at least 6 more heat signatures approaching from the east. Victor was already moving, pulling Mila toward the security room. On the monitors, he could see thermal images converging on the estate from multiple angles. Not watching anymore. Moving in. How long until they breached the walls? 5 minutes? Maybe less? Victor made a decision. Wake Lily. Pack light. Just essentials. We're moving to the safe room in the basement. Safe room? Mila's voice was high with panic. Victor, what's happening? They're not waiting until midnight. They're hitting us now. Victor was already pulling weapons from a concealed cabinet, checking ammunition, his movements precise and automatic. And we're going to be ready. Mila didn't move, frozen by fear, and the weight of too many impossible decisions colliding at once. Victor gripped her shoulders, forcing her to meet his eyes. Mila, listen to me. I need you focused. Can you do that? She nodded, though her whole body was trembling. Good. Go upstairs, get Lily, grab one bag with whatever you need for the next 24 hours. Nothing else. You have 3 minutes. He released her and turned to Marcus. I want eyes on every approach. If they breach the wall, I want to know exactly where and how many. Mila ran. Victor heard her footsteps pounding up the stairs, heard the door to the nursery open, heard Lily's confused cry as she was woken from sleep. The sounds of his family preparing to hide while he prepared for war. Marcus was coordinating over the radio, his voice calm and clinical despite the chaos building outside. Rico, take position on the west balcony. Jensen, you're on the main gate. Davies, I want you mobile, covering the blind spots between their positions. What about the east approach? Victor asked, studying the thermal images. The signatures were closer now, moving with tactical precision. These weren't street thugs or hired muscle. These were professionals. That's where they're concentrating force. 6 men, possibly 7, all armed. Then that's where they want us looking. Victor's instincts were screaming. Pull up the south cameras, extended range. Marcus switched feeds, and there it was, 3 more signatures approaching from the south, using the main assault as cover for a secondary breach point. They're splitting our attention, Victor said. Classic pincer movement. Hit us from two sides, force us to divide our defensive positions. Which means they have intel on our capabilities. Marcus's expression was grim. Someone told them exactly how many men we'd have on site. The traitor. Whether Varga had been lying about the details or not, the tactical reality was undeniable. Someone had fed their enemies enough information to plan this assault with devastating precision. Mila reappeared with Lily bundled in her arms and a small backpack over her shoulder. The baby was crying again, sensing her mother's terror, and the sound cut through the tactical chatter like a knife. Basement, Victor said, already moving. Now. He led them through the house to a section that looked like ordinary storage, shelves of supplies, old furniture covered in dust, the accumulated debris of a property that had never quite become a home. Victor moved to the back wall and pressed a sequence on what appeared to be a light switch. The wall section slid aside, revealing a reinforced steel door with a biometric lock. Victor pressed his palm to the scanner, and the lock disengaged with a heavy thunk. Inside, he told Mila, there's food, water, medical supplies, communications equipment. If something goes wrong up here, if they get past us, you lock this door and you don't open it for anyone. The walls are 18 inches of reinforced concrete. Nothing short of military-grade explosives will breach it. Mila stared at the revealed space, a room perhaps 15 by 20 feet, equipped like a survival bunker. How long can we stay in here? 2 weeks if you ration carefully, but it won't come to that. Victor's jaw was set. I'm not letting them get close enough to test those doors. Victor, Mila's voice cracked. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I brought this to you. I'm sorry I ran. I'm sorry about all of it. Save it. He cut her off, not unkindly. We deal with what is. You keep Lily safe. I'll handle everything else. He started to close the door, but Mila's hand shot out, stopping it. Wait, there's something you need to know about Ethan, about why I think he might have talked. Tell me fast. 6 months ago, he called me. I didn't answer. I was maintaining radio silence, trying to stay hidden, but he left a voicemail. Said he was in trouble, said he owed money to someone dangerous and needed help. I didn't call back. I thought if I ignored it, if I kept my distance, he'd find another way out. Tears were streaming down her face now. But if he was desperate enough, if they offered him money or threatened him then he made a choice. Victor's voice was harder than he intended. Whatever his reasons, he made a choice that put you and Lily in danger. That's not something I can overlook. He's still my brother. And she's still my daughter. Victor looked at Lily, at her wide, dark eyes watching him with that solemn intensity. Lock the door, Mila. Don't open it until I come back. He pulled the steel door closed and heard the heavy locks engage from inside. The wall section slid back into place, disguising the entrance once more. To anyone who didn't know it was there, the basement looked exactly like ordinary storage. Victor climbed the stairs 2 at a time, returning to the security room where Marcus was tracking the assault's progression. The signatures had reached the wall on both the east and south sides. 30 seconds to breach, Marcus reported. They're using cutting tools on the east. Looks like they're going over the wall on the south. Let them come. Victor checked his weapons, 2 handguns, extra magazines, a tactical knife. We funnel them into kill zones and take them down systematically. No prisoners unless they have information we need. Boss, we're outnumbered, even with defensive advantage. I've operated at worse odds. Victor moved to the window, looking out at his estate, at the grounds he'd turned into a fortress. They're expecting us to hunker down, to defend statically. We're going to do the opposite. Mobile defense, aggressive counterattack. We hit them before they get comfortable. Marcus nodded slowly. You want to take the fight to them. I want to make them regret coming here. Victor's phone buzzed, a message from the team transporting Ethan Hart. 10 minutes out. Change of plans. When Ethan arrives, bring him straight to the main hall. I want him to see exactly what his information has caused. You sure that's wise? Having a potential hostile inside the house while we're under assault? He's not the enemy. He's just weak. Victor chambered a round in his primary weapon. And weakness can be useful if you know how to exploit it. The radio crackled, Rico's voice tense but controlled. They're through on the east side. 4 men, heavily armed, moving toward the house in tactical formation. Let them get to the courtyard, Victor ordered. Wait until they're in the open, then light them up. Concentrated fire. Don't give them time to take cover. He moved through the house to a second-floor position overlooking the east courtyard, a sniper's nest he'd prepared years ago and never used. The window was already open, the angle perfect for covering the approach. Marcus took position beside him with a scoped rifle. Below, Victor could see shadows moving across the grounds. The assault team was good. They moved with military precision, covering each other's advances, checking corners, clearing sight lines. But good wasn't enough when you were walking into a prepared kill zone. They reached the courtyard, a wide expanse of open ground between the outer wall and the main house, exactly where Victor wanted them. On my mark, he said quietly. Then, after a breath, now. The night exploded with gunfire. Victor and Marcus opened up from the second floor while Rico and Jensen engaged from ground positions. The assault team tried to scatter, tried to find cover, but there was nowhere to go. The courtyard had been designed specifically for this. Clear fields of fire from multiple elevated positions, minimal cover, perfect killing ground. 2 men went down immediately. A third made it to a decorative fountain and tried to use it for shelter, but Jensen's angle eliminated that advantage. The man fell, his weapon clattering across the stone. The fourth member of the assault team was either smarter or luckier. He'd managed to reach the corner of the house, out of the direct line of fire, and was radioing frantically to his backup. South team is moving, Marcus reported, tracking the thermal signatures. They're accelerating their approach, probably trying to support the survivors on the east. Let them come, Victor's voice was cold. Davies, how's your angle on the south approach? Clear line of sight. They're bunched up, climbing the wall, taking the shot. More gunfire. Victor couldn't see the south side from his position, but he heard the results. Someone screaming, someone else shouting orders, the chaos of a plan falling apart under unexpected resistance. The man sheltering at the corner of the house made a break for it, trying to reach the cover of the gardens. Victor tracked him smoothly, led the target, and fired 3 times. The man stumbled, fell, didn't get back up. East courtyard clear, Marcus confirmed. 4 hostiles down. South side? Victor was already moving, heading toward a window that would give him a view of the southern approach. 2 down, 1 wounded and retreating, 1 still engaged. Davies sounded winded. Wait, correction. The wounded one just went over the wall. They're pulling back. Victor reached the window in time to see the thermal signatures retreating, dragging their casualties with them. The assault had lasted less than 3 minutes and had ended in complete failure for the attackers. But Victor knew this wasn't over. This was a probe, testing their defenses, measuring their response. The next wave would be larger, better prepared, more dangerous. His phone rang. Varga again. Impressive, the voice said without preamble. I thought my men were professionals, but you cut through them like they were amateurs. I'm almost insulted on their behalf. You sent them to die. Victor kept his tone neutral, giving nothing away. You knew they wouldn't succeed. Of course, but now I know exactly what I'm dealing with. 4 defenders, excellent tactical positions, overlapping fields of fire. Very well prepared, Victor, but preparation only goes so far when you're outnumbered 20-1. 20. Victor's mind calculated rapidly. If Varga was telling the truth, the force that had just retreated represented less than a quarter of his available assets. The offer still stands, Varga continued. Midnight. Come alone, and this ends peacefully, or stay barricaded in your fortress and watch it become your tomb. You're not getting what you want, Victor said. Not my territory, not my operations, and definitely not my family. Then you're choosing the hard way. I can respect that. Varga's tone shifted, becoming almost friendly. You know, Victor, in another life we might have been allies. We're not so different, you and I. We both built empires from nothing. We both understand that power requires ruthlessness. The only real difference between us is that I'm willing to burn everything down to get what I want, and you're still clinging to the illusion that you can protect people in this business. The difference, Victor said quietly, is that I'm still standing and your assault team is bleeding out on my lawn. For now. Varga hung up. Victor lowered the phone and turned to find Marcus watching him. He's going to hit us again. Harder this time. I know. Victor checked his watch. 2 hours until midnight. How long until our reinforcements arrive? First wave is 15 minutes out. Full strength in 90 minutes. Tell them to hurry. Victor headed back downstairs, checking on defensive positions, verifying that the perimeter was secure. The bodies in the courtyard would stay where they fell, a message to anyone else considering an assault. He was crossing the main hall when headlights swept through the windows. A vehicle approaching the gate, moving fast. Victor's hand went to his weapon automatically before Marcus's voice came through his earpiece. That's our transport with Ethan Hart. He's secured. The gate opened and a black sedan pulled through. Two of Victor's men got out, hauling Ethan between them. He was conscious but clearly terrified, his face bruised and his hands zip-tied behind his back. They brought him into the hall and forced him to his knees. Ethan looked up at Victor, and whatever he saw in Victor's expression made him start talking immediately. "I didn't know," he said, the words tumbling out in a rush. "I swear to God, Victor, I didn't know they were going to use it like this. They told me they just wanted to talk to you, to deliver a message." "Shut up." Victor's voice was soft but carried enough threat to cut through Ethan's panic. "You don't get to talk yet. First, you get to listen." He gestured toward the windows, toward the courtyard where bodies lay in spreading pools of blood. "See that? That's what your information bought. 4 men dead, maybe more on the south side. And they weren't the target. My daughter was. The baby girl you knew about because Mila trusted you enough to tell you the truth." Ethan's face went white. "Lily? They're after Lily? They know she exists because of you. They know I'm her father because of you. And now they're trying to use her as leverage against me." Victor crouched down so he was eye level with Ethan. "So you're going to tell me everything. Every conversation you had with Varga's people, every piece of information you gave them, every detail about how this started. And you're going to do it quickly, because we have maybe an hour before they attack again, and I need to know exactly what they know." "It wasn't supposed to be like this." Ethan was crying now, tears and snot running down his face. "I just owed money, so much money. And they said if I gave them information about Mila, just where she was and who the father was, they'd clear my debt. I didn't know they were going to hurt her. I didn't know. How much did you owe?" 50,000. I got in deep with some bad people, gambling debts, and then the interest kept piling up and I couldn't pay and they were going to kill me." "So you sold out your sister instead." Victor's voice was colder than ice. "You traded her life and your niece's life for $50,000. I thought she'd be safe. She was with you, and everyone knows you're dangerous, and I figured you could protect her better than I could. Then why didn't you come to me?" The question was sharp enough to cut. "If you thought I could protect her, why not ask for help instead of giving ammunition to my enemies?" Ethan had no answer for that. He just knelt there, sobbing, looking pathetic and broken. Marcus appeared in the doorway. "Boss, we've got a problem. The team monitoring Varga's known locations picked up major movement. Vehicles, personnel, heavy weapons. He's mobilizing everything." "Timeline?" "They could be here in 30 minutes. Which meant the first assault had been a feint, a way to draw out Victor's defensive capabilities and measure his response. The real attack was coming now, with overwhelming force. Victor stood, looking down at Ethan. "What else did you tell them? Did you give them information about this property?" "No, I swear I didn't even know about this place. All I told them was that Mila had a baby, and she'd listed you as the emergency contact. That's it. That's all I knew." Victor studied him, reading body language and micro-expressions. Ethan was telling the truth, or at least believed he was, which meant Varga's intelligence about the estate had come from somewhere else. The traitor Marcus had mentioned. Someone inside Victor's organization who'd been feeding information to the enemy for months. "Get him out of my sight," Victor told the guards. "Lock him in one of the storage rooms upstairs. If we survive the next few hours, I'll decide what to do with him." They hauled Ethan away, still crying, still protesting his innocence. Victor turned to Marcus. "I need a list of everyone who knows about this property, everyone who's been here, everyone who has access to the security systems, everyone who could have told Varga about our capabilities." "That's a short list. Maybe 8 people total, and half of them are in this house right now." "Then it's someone in this house, someone close enough to know our protocols, our defensive positions, our response times." Victor felt rage building beneath his control. Someone who's been planning this betrayal for months. A sound from upstairs. Lily crying, the noise muffled but unmistakable. Victor's attention snapped toward it automatically, every protective instinct firing at once. "She's fine," Marcus said quickly. "She's in the safe room with Mila. That door is designed to be soundproof, which means if we can hear her, someone opened it." Victor was already moving, taking the stairs 3 at a time, his weapon drawn. The basement door was open. Not forced, open from the inside, which meant Mila had unlocked it. Victor approached carefully, checking angles, making sure this wasn't a trap. "Mila?" he called down the stairs. "Talk to me." Her voice came back, shaky but alive. "Victor, there's something wrong with Lily. She's burning up. Her temperature is really high and I don't know what to do." Victor descended into the safe room. Mila was sitting on the floor with Lily in her arms, the baby's face flushed and her breathing rapid. Victor touched Lily's forehead and felt the heat radiating from her skin. "How long has she been like this?" "It started about 10 minutes ago. I thought maybe she was just upset, but then I checked her temperature and it's 103. Mila's voice was rising with panic. "Victor, she needs a doctor. She needs a hospital. We can't leave, not now." Victor pulled out his phone, calling the one person he trusted with medical emergencies. "Dr. Chen, I need you at the Blackwood estate immediately. I have an 8-month-old with a fever of 103, and I need you to assess her." "Victor, I'm 40 minutes away, and I'm hearing reports of violence in your area. Is it safe to— But I'll make it safe. Just get here." He ended the call and looked at Mila. "The doctor's coming. Until she arrives, we need to bring Lily's temperature down. There should be infant medication in the medical supplies. I already gave her some. It's not working." Mila was rocking Lily, trying to soothe her, but the baby's cries were getting weaker instead of stronger. "Victor, I'm scared. What if it's serious? What if she needs emergency care and we can't get to it because we're trapped here?" "We're not trapped. We're fortified." But even as Victor said it, he felt the weight of the decision pressing down on him. Stay here and hope the doctor arrived before Varga's assault, or risk moving Lily to a hospital and exposing her to an attack in transit. No good options, only different flavors of danger. Marcus's voice came through his earpiece. "Boss, we've got incoming. Multiple vehicles on the access road, moving fast." Victor's jaw tightened. The assault was starting early. Varga wasn't waiting for midnight anymore. "I need to go," he told Mila. "Stay here with Lily. Keep the door locked unless the doctor arrives or I come back for you." "Victor, I know." He met her eyes, saw the fear there, the desperation. "I know this is impossible. I know you're terrified. But right now, in this moment, the safest place for both of you is behind that door. Trust me." He didn't wait for her response, just headed back upstairs, sealing the safe room behind him. Marcus met him in the main hall, a tablet in his hands showing multiple camera feeds. 6 vehicles, Marcus reported. Estimate 30 to 40 personnel, heavily armed. They're not even trying to be subtle this time. Good. Victor checked his weapons, his mind shifting into combat mode. Subtle is harder to kill. How many of our people are on site now? 8 total. The reinforcements arrived while you were downstairs. 8 against 40. Not good odds, but Victor had survived worse. And he had advantages: superior defensive position, better tactical coordination, and most importantly, he was fighting for something that mattered more than territory or money. He was fighting for his daughter. Everyone to defensive positions, Victor ordered. And Marcus, I need you to do something for me. If this goes wrong, if they breach the house and I go down, you get to that safe room. You get Mila and Lily out through the emergency tunnel, and you don't stop running until they're somewhere safe. Understood? Marcus met his eyes. It won't come to that. If it does, then I'll get them out. Marcus's voice was steady. You have my word. The vehicles were at the gate now. Victor could see them through the cameras, could see armed men pouring out of vans and trucks, forming up with military precision. This wasn't a probe or a test anymore. This was a full-scale assault with the intention of overwhelming his defenses through sheer numbers. A voice boomed through the night, amplified by a megaphone. Victor Kane, you have 60 seconds to send out the woman and child. They walk away unharmed, and we'll consider this matter settled. Victor picked up the security system's microphone, broadcasting his response through exterior speakers. Here's my counteroffer. You have 60 seconds to get off my property. After that, Anyone still on this land dies." Laughter echoed across the grounds. Then the voice again, different this time. Varga himself, Victor realized. "Always the hard way with you, Kane? Fine. We'll do this the hard way." The assault began with grenades, 3 explosions, coordinated and precise, hitting the front entrance and 2 ground floor windows. The house shook with the impacts, and Victor heard glass shattering, wood splintering, the chaos of breaches opening in his fortress. "Return fire!" Victor shouted, and the night erupted with gunfire from all sides. They were coming from everywhere at once, through the damaged entrance, through the blown windows, over the walls, and across the grounds. Victor's people engaged from prepared positions, trying to create kill zones, trying to channel the attackers into disadvantageous positions. But there were too many. For every one they dropped, 2 more appeared. Victor moved through the house like a ghost, appearing where he was needed, eliminating threats with brutal efficiency. He'd spent 15 years perfecting the art of violence, and now he unleashed it without hesitation or mercy. A man came through a window, weapon raised. Victor shot him twice before he'd fully cleared the frame. Another tried the doorway. Same result. They were professionals, well-trained and well-equipped, but they were fighting on Victor's ground, in his house, and that made all the difference. For the first 5 minutes, they held. Then one of Victor's men went down on the east side and the defensive line started to collapse. Victor heard Jensen's voice over the radio, tight with pain. "I'm hit. East corridor is compromised." Marcus was already moving to reinforce the position, but Victor could see the tactical situation deteriorating in real time. They were being pushed back, forced to give ground, and every inch they surrendered brought Varga's men closer to the basement, closer to Mila and Lily. "Fall back to the central hall," Victor ordered, his mind racing through contingencies. "Tight defensive perimeter, overlapping fields of fire. Make them pay for every foot." He dropped 2 more attackers as he retreated, placing his shots with precision even while moving. Behind him, he could hear Rico providing covering fire, the steady rhythm of controlled bursts designed to keep the enemy's heads down. They consolidated in the main hall, a wide space with multiple exits that Victor had chosen specifically for this kind of last stand. His remaining people, Marcus, Rico, Davies, and 3 others whose names he didn't have time to recall, took up positions behind furniture and architectural features that provided cover. The assault paused. Victor could hear movement outside the hall, voices coordinating, tactical planning. They knew they had the advantage now, knew Victor's people were cornered. They could afford to take their time, to plan their approach carefully. "Ammunition status," Victor said quietly. The responses came back in whispers. Everyone was running low. Not critically yet, but in another sustained engagement, they'd be empty. "There's still the emergency cache in the basement," Marcus said, "behind the wine cellar, about 50 feet from the safe room," which meant someone would have to make a run through potentially hostile territory to reach supplies. And if they were spotted near the safe room, it would reveal Mila and Lily's location. Victor was weighing the risks when his phone buzzed. A message from Dr. Chen. "2 minutes out. Situation at the gate looks hostile. Do I have clearance to approach?" He typed back quickly. "Stand by. We'll signal when safe." Then Varga's voice echoed through the house. No megaphone this time, just a man speaking loud enough to be heard. "This is getting tedious, Kane. You've lost 6 men from what I can see, and we've barely scratched our reserves. How long do you think you can keep this up?" Victor didn't respond. He was scanning the room, looking for angles, for opportunities, for anything he could exploit. "I know you have the woman and child here somewhere," Varga continued, "which means you're not just fighting for yourself anymore. You're fighting for them. That makes you predictable, sloppy, and eventually fatal." Still Victor said nothing. Let Varga talk. Every second he spent monologuing was a second Victor's people could use to prepare. "Last chance, Kane. Send them out and walk away. You get to live, they get to live, everyone goes home. Or you can die defending an empty principle, and I'll find them anyway." Victor finally spoke, his voice carrying across the hall. "You made a mistake coming here, Silas. You could have waited, could have hit me somewhere less defensible, but you got impatient. You wanted this done tonight, wanted to prove something." "I wanted to finish this," Varga shot back. "I'm tired of you controlling half this city while I'm stuck fighting for scraps." "Then you should have hit me harder." Victor chambered a fresh round. Because this half-measure assault just told me everything I need to know about your capabilities. And trust me, it's not impressive. The response was immediate. A fresh wave of gunfire, angry and undisciplined. Varga had taken the bait, let emotion override tactics. His men came charging into the hall, trying to overwhelm through sheer aggression. Victor and his team cut them down methodically. The hall became a killing floor, bodies dropping, the air thick with cordite and the copper smell of blood. It was brutal, efficient, and devastating. But it cost them. Rico took a round to the shoulder and went down. Davies caught shrapnel from a grenade and had to fall back. They were winning each engagement, but losing the war of attrition. When the assault finally broke and Varga's men retreated again, Victor did a quick count. 4 of his people still combat effective, including himself. Maybe 15 of Varga's men down, but that still left 25 or more in reserve. The math was unsustainable. Marcus reached the same conclusion. Boss, we need to change the paradigm. We can't win by holding ground. I know. Victor was already moving toward the basement stairs. I'm going to get the ammunition. You hold here for 90 seconds, then fall back to secondary positions. Make them think we're routing. That's suicide. They'll chase you down there, and that's the idea. Victor's smile was cold. Get everyone ready to collapse on my position when I signal. We're going to turn the basement into a trap. He didn't wait for acknowledgement, just moved through the house toward the basement access. The main floor was a war zone now. Furniture destroyed, walls pockmarked with bullet holes, blood on almost every surface. His fortress had become a battlefield, and there was no going back to what it had been before. Victor reached the basement stairs and descended quietly, his weapon up and ready. The lower level was dark except for emergency lighting, casting everything in a red glow that made the shadows deeper and more menacing. He could hear Lily crying from behind the safe room door, a sound that cut through all his tactical thinking and hit something primal in his chest. His daughter was terrified, sick, trapped in a concrete box while men with guns tore her world apart around her. Focus. He forced the emotion down, locked it away, returned to the cold calculus of survival. The wine cellar was at the far end of the basement, past the safe room entrance. Victor moved carefully, checking corners, listening for any sign that Varga's men had already penetrated this deep. He was halfway there when he heard footsteps above him. Multiple sets, moving with purpose. They were coming down. Victor reached the wine cellar and found the hidden panel Marcus had mentioned. Behind it was indeed a cache, weapons, ammunition, grenades, everything they needed to continue the fight. He grabbed what he could carry, stuffing magazines into his pockets, clipping grenades to his belt. The footsteps were closer now, on the stairs. Victor positioned himself behind a support column with a clear line of sight to the basement entrance and waited. 3 men appeared, moving in tactical formation, weapons raised. Victor let them get fully into the basement, let them commit to the space before he opened fire. The lead man went down immediately. The second tried to take cover behind a shelving unit and caught 2 rounds through the thin metal. The third managed to get off several shots before Victor's bullet found him, the impacts close enough that Victor felt concrete dust spray across his face. Then silence. 3 more bodies, 3 fewer threats. Victor's radio crackled. Marcus's voice, urgent. Boss, we've got a problem. Someone just drove a van straight through the front gate. It's heading for the house at high speed. A vehicle-borne explosive device. Victor had seen the tactic before, and he knew exactly what it meant. Varga was escalating, willing to bring the entire house down if that's what it took to win. Everyone out, Victor ordered. East exit, now. Move toward the gardens and establish a perimeter around the basement entrance. They're going to try to bury us. He was already running, heading back toward the safe room. He pounded on the steel door with the specific pattern that meant urgent extraction. The locks disengaged and Mila appeared, Lily crying in her arms, her face streaked with tears and fear. What's happening? I heard explosions and gunfire and... We need to move. Now! Victor took Lily from her arms, feeling the baby's fever-hot skin against his. There's a tunnel that leads from here to an exit point about 200 yards from the house. We're going to use it. I thought you said we were safe here. That was before they decided to blow up the building. Victor was already moving deeper into the safe room, to a section of wall that looked solid but wasn't. Another hidden panel, another biometric lock. Come on! The wall slid open, revealing a tunnel lined with concrete and equipped with emergency lighting. It was narrow, barely wide enough for two people to walk side by side, and it stretched into darkness. Mila hesitated. Victor, Lily's getting worse. Her fever isn't breaking, and she's barely responsive, and we need... The doctor is 2 minutes out. We get to the exit point, we signal her, and she treats Lily there. Victor was already in the tunnel, Lily secure in his left arm, his weapon in his right hand. Move, Mila, please. She followed, and Victor sealed the entrance behind them. The tunnel was designed as a last resort escape route, something he'd installed when he'd first acquired the property and never expected to use. Now it might be the only thing that saved them. They moved through the darkness, their footsteps echoing off concrete walls. Lily had stopped crying, which should have been a relief, but instead terrified Victor more. Silence in a sick infant was rarely a good sign. Above them, the house shook. The van had hit. Victor felt the vibration through the tunnel walls, heard the muffled roar of the explosion. His fortress, his stronghold, the place he'd spent years making impregnable, was being systematically destroyed. But none of that mattered. Not the property, not the tactical situation, not even his own survival. What mattered was the baby in his arms and the woman behind him. Everything else was secondary. The tunnel terminated at a concealed exit in a maintenance shed about 200 yards from the main house. Victor approached it carefully, using a periscope system to check the area before opening the hatch. Clear. For the moment. He emerged into the night air, helping Mila up after him. Behind them, the house was burning. Victor could see flames through the windows, could hear the structure groaning as fire weakened its supports. His people were scattered across the grounds, engaging Varga's forces in running battles that looked more like chaos than coordinated defense. Victor pulled out his phone and sent a message to Dr. Chen. North side of property, maintenance shed. Come now. While they waited, Victor examined Lily more closely. The baby's breathing was shallow, her skin flushed and burning. Mila was right. This was serious, possibly critical. Talk to me, he said quietly to Mila. Has she been sick before? Any medical conditions I should know about? Ear infections. She gets them frequently. Mila's voice was shaking. I took her to a clinic 3 weeks ago, and they said her ears were fine, but maybe it came back. Maybe it got worse. Headlights approaching. Dr. Chen's car moving fast across the grounds. She pulled up to the shed and jumped out, medical bag already in hand. In here, Victor said, gesturing to the shed's interior. It wasn't ideal, but it had light and shelter, and it was better than being exposed. Dr. Chen was in her 50s, competent and unflappable, exactly the kind of doctor you wanted in a crisis. She took one look at Lily, and her expression became professionally focused. How long has she had the fever? About 30 minutes, Mila said. Maybe 40. It came on fast. Dr. Chen pulled out an otoscope and examined Lily's ears. Severe bilateral ear infection. It's progressed to the point where it's affecting her neurological responses. She needs intravenous antibiotics, and she needs them now. Can you do it here? Victor asked. I can start an IV, but she needs to be in a hospital. This isn't something I can treat in a maintenance shed while there's a war happening outside. Dr. Chen looked at Victor, her eyes serious. I understand the tactical situation, but medically speaking, this child needs emergency care within the next hour, or we're risking permanent damage. Victor felt the weight of impossible choices crushing down on him. The hospital was 30 minutes away. The roads between here and there would be watched, would be perfect ambush points. Taking Lily there would expose her to threats that could kill her just as surely as the infection. But staying here, with inadequate medical care, would guarantee her deterioration. Mila was watching him, waiting for a decision, and Victor saw in her eyes the same terror he felt in his chest. They'd brought their daughter into the world only to watch her slip away because Victor's enemies had forced them into an impossible situation. The hospital, Victor said finally. We take her to the hospital. Dr. Chen, you drive. I'll provide security. Victor, they'll be waiting for us. Mila's voice was barely a whisper. Varga will have people watching every hospital in the city. I know. Victor was already scanning the grounds, looking for a vehicle they could use. But we don't have a choice. Lily needs treatment, and we're going to get it for her. Whatever it takes. Marcus's voice came through the radio. Boss, we've pushed them back for now. They're regrouping near the front gate. What's your status? I'm taking Lily to the hospital. I need you to create a distraction, something big enough to pull Varga's attention away from the access road. How big? Big enough that he thinks I'm making a break for it through the front gate. Can you stage a vehicle exodus? Make it look like we're evacuating? We've got enough cars. I'll coordinate it. Marcus paused. You sure about this, boss? Splitting up our forces while we're under assault? Lily's critically ill. The decision is made. Victor ended the transmission and turned to Dr. Chen. Your car. How fast can it go? Fast enough, but I'm not bulletproof. You don't need to be. You just need to drive. Victor settled Lily more securely in his arms. The baby's eyes were half closed, her breathing labored. Time was running out. They got into Dr. Chen's sedan, Mila in the back with Lily, Victor in the passenger seat with his weapon ready. Doctor. Chen started the engine and pulled out from behind the shed, heading for the access road that led away from the burning house. Behind them, Victor heard engines roaring to life, Marcus executing the distraction, creating the illusion of a full evacuation through the front gate. Gunfire erupted in that direction, Varga's forces concentrating on the obvious target. Now, Victor told Dr. Chen, fast but smooth. We can't afford to draw attention. She accelerated, navigating around debris and bodies, threading through the chaos of the battlefield the estate had become. They were 50 yards from the perimeter when Victor spotted movement in the tree line. An ambush. Of course, Varga would have positioned men to cover all possible exits. Contact right, Victor said, raising his weapon. Keep driving. Don't stop no matter what. The first shots came from the woods, rounds impacting the car's body but not penetrating. Doctor. Chen had upgraded to a partially armored vehicle after Victor had insisted all his regular contacts take basic security precautions. Victor returned fire through the window, controlled bursts aimed at muzzle flashes in the darkness. He couldn't see his targets clearly, but he didn't need to. He just needed to suppress them long enough for Dr. Chen to get past. More impacts on the car. The rear window cracked, but held. Mila screamed, covering Lily's body with her own, protecting the baby with maternal instinct. Almost through, Dr. Chen said, her voice tight but steady. She was accelerating now, pushing the car to its limits. They broke through the ambush zone and onto the main road. Victor looked back and saw 2 vehicles pulling out to pursue them, headlights cutting through the night. We've got a tail, he said. 2 cars. How far to the hospital? 25 minutes at this speed. They'll catch us before then. Victor was already calculating angles and probabilities. Change of plans. Take the highway. We need to lose them in traffic. It's past midnight. There won't be much traffic. Then we make our own. Victor pulled out his phone and made a call. Rico, you still mobile? Barely. Took some shrapnel, but I'm functional. I need you to cause a traffic jam on Highway 47 northbound, about 5 miles from the estate turnoff. I don't care how you do it. Just make it big and make it now. On it. Dr. Chen merged onto the highway, pushing the car to 90 miles per hour. The pursuing vehicles matched their speed, staying close but not closing the distance. They were professional, Victor noted, not trying to run them off the road or force a confrontation. Just tracking, waiting for an opportunity. Behind them, Victor saw smoke rising into the night sky. Multiple fires now, not just the house but other structures on the estate. Varga was raising everything, making sure there was nothing left to return to. Lily made a sound in the back seat, a weak whimper that clutched at Victor's heart. He turned to see Mila holding the baby, tears streaming down her face. She's not responding, Mila said. Victor, I'm trying to wake her up, and she's not responding. Dr. Chen glanced in the rear-view mirror, her expression grave. That's the fever affecting her brain function. We need to get there faster. How much faster can we go? In this car, with these roads. This is it. Victor looked at the pursuing vehicles, at the speedometer showing 95, at the GPS showing 20 minutes to the hospital. Too long. They needed something to change, needed an advantage they didn't have. Then he saw the smoke ahead. Rico's traffic jam. A semi-truck jackknifed across 2 lanes, cars backed up for a quarter mile. emergency lights flashing. It was beautiful in its chaos. "There," Victor pointed. "Use the shoulder. Get around the jam." "Doctor." Chen didn't hesitate, swerving onto the shoulder and accelerating past the stopped traffic. The pursuing vehicles tried to follow, but they were heavier, less maneuverable. One clipped a stopped car and spun out. The other made it through, but had lost critical distance. They emerged from the traffic jam with a 200-yard lead, and Dr. Chen used every bit of it. The hospital was visible now, lights blazing in the distance, the promise of safety and medical care. "Emergency entrance," Victor said. "Drive straight to the doors. I'll handle security." They pulled into the hospital loop at high speed, Dr. Chen braking hard to avoid pedestrians. Victor was out before the car fully stopped, weapon concealed but accessible, scanning for threats. The pursuing vehicle arrived 10 seconds later, but by then Victor had Lily in his arms and was moving through the emergency room doors with Mila and Dr. Chen flanking him. "Critical pediatric patient," Dr. Chen called to the triage nurse. 8-month-old female, bilateral severe ear infection, fever of 104, decreased responsiveness. We need a treatment room now. The hospital staff responded immediately, mobilizing with practiced efficiency. They took Lily from Victor's arms and rushed her toward a treatment area, Mila following with Dr. Chen providing medical context. Victor stayed in the waiting area, watching the entrance, waiting for Varga's men to make their move. They'd followed this far. They wouldn't give up just because of hospital security. His phone buzzed. "Marcus." "Boss, the estate is lost. We've evacuated, took all the survivors. Casualty count is bad. 4 dead, 6 wounded. But we got out." "Varga?" "Pulled back when the police started responding to the fires. He got what he wanted. You're displaced. Your fortress is gone, and he knows about Lily." "Not everything he wanted." Victor kept his eyes on the entrance. "I'm still alive. And so is my daughter. For now. But boss, this doesn't end here. Varga made his play, and even though it didn't work perfectly, he's shown he's willing to go all the way. He'll come at you again." "Let him." Victor's voice was cold. "Next time I won't be defensive. Next time I'm bringing the war to him." He ended the call and settled in to wait, his mind already working through contingencies and counterattacks. Varga thought he'd won by destroying the estate, by forcing Victor into a vulnerable position. But Varga had made a critical mistake. He'd gone after Victor's daughter, and there was no mercy, no restraint, no rules of engagement when it came to protecting Lily. The war had just begun. A doctor emerged from the treatment area, still in her scrubs, her expression cautiously optimistic. "Mr. Kane, your daughter is stable. We've started aggressive antibiotic treatment, and her fever is already beginning to respond. She's going to be okay." Relief hit Victor like a physical wave, strong enough that he had to grip the chair arm to steady himself. "Can I see her?" "In a few minutes. We're still getting her settled in a room." The doctor paused. "The police are here. They have questions about the violence at your property and the car chase on the highway. I told them to wait until you'd seen your daughter, but they're insistent." Of course they were. Victor had connections with the police, had officers on his payroll, but this situation was too public, too visible. There would be investigations, questions, complications. But that was tomorrow's problem. Tonight, his daughter was alive. That was all that mattered. "Tell them I'll cooperate fully," Victor said, "after I see Lily." The doctor nodded and returned to the treatment area. Victor pulled out his phone and sent a message to his lawyer, a simple text that would set in motion all the legal protections he'd need for the coming storm. Then Mila appeared in the doorway, her face exhausted but no longer terrified. "They said we can see her. She's sleeping, but she's stable." Victor followed her into the room where Lily was sleeping in a hospital crib, an IV line running into her tiny arm, monitors tracking her vitals. She looked fragile, impossibly small, but the flush had faded from her cheeks and her breathing was steady. Victor reached down and carefully touched her hand. Lily's fingers curled around his automatically, a reflex that had nothing to do with consciousness, but everything to do with trust. His daughter, his responsibility, his reason for everything that came next. Mila was watching him, and when he looked up, he saw something in her expression he hadn't expected. Not gratitude exactly, but acknowledgement. Recognition that Victor had made good on his promise, that despite everything, He'd kept Lily safe. "What happens now?" she asked quietly. "Now we end this." Victor's voice was steady, certain. "Varga thinks he's won because he destroyed the estate. But that was just property. What matters is standing right here in this room. And I'm going to make sure he never threatens it again." "How?" Victor smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. "By teaching him the difference between controlling territory and protecting family. One is about power, the other is about survival. And I've always been very good at surviving." Outside Lily's hospital room, Victor could hear the measured footsteps of hospital security, the murmur of police officers waiting to ask their questions, the ordinary machinery of law and order trying to make sense of the chaos he'd brought to their doorstep. But inside this small space, watching his daughter sleep with monitors tracking every heartbeat, Victor felt a clarity he hadn't experienced in years. The rules had changed. Not the rules of his world, those had always been brutal and straightforward, but the rules governing what Victor was willing to do, willing to sacrifice, willing to become. Mila settled into the chair beside Lily's crib, her hand reaching through the bars to rest gently on the baby's chest, feeling the rise and fall of breathing that had terrified her an hour ago. "You meant what you said, about ending this." "Every word. Varga has resources. He has men, territory, connections. You just lost your primary stronghold and half your defensive capability." Mila's voice was quiet but steady. "How do you win against someone who just proved he can destroy everything you've built?" Victor moved to the window, looking out at the city lights stretching toward the horizon. Somewhere out there, Silas Varga was celebrating what he thought was a victory. Somewhere out there, the traitor who'd sold Victor's intelligence was waiting to see what happened next. And somewhere out there, Ethan Hart was locked in a storage room, his betrayal still unpunished. "I win by making him understand that what he destroyed was just architecture," Victor said. "Stone and steel and property records. Things that can be rebuilt or replaced. But what I'm protecting now..." He turned to look at Lily, at the gentle movement of her breathing. "That's irreplaceable. And men who understand that difference fight with a certainty that men like Varga can't match." Mila studied him, her expression unreadable. "You're going to kill him." "Yes. And his organization? I'm going to dismantle it, systematically. Every lieutenant, every operation, every source of revenue. I'm going to erase Silas Varga from this city so completely that in 6 months, people will struggle to remember his name. That will start a war." "The war already started the moment he learned about Lily." Victor's voice was cold iron. "I'm just going to finish it." A knock at the door interrupted them. Dr. Chen entered, looking exhausted but professionally composed. "The police want to speak with you. I've been stalling, but they're getting insistent. Something about property damage, weapons charges, multiple casualties." "Tell them I'll make a statement in 30 minutes. And call my lawyer, Daniel Reeves. He'll know how to handle this." Dr. Chen nodded and left. Mila stood, moving closer to Victor, her voice dropping to barely a whisper. "What are you going to tell them? About tonight? About the assault? About everything?" "The truth, mostly. That my property was attacked by unknown assailants, that I defended myself and my family, that I cooperated fully with law enforcement." Victor checked his phone, scanning messages from Marcus about the team's status, about casualties, about the smoldering ruins of what had been his fortress. "The police won't push too hard. Varga's people left bodies and evidence everywhere. The narrative of self-defense will hold. And then what? We just wait here while Varga plans his next move? No, we go on offense." Victor was already texting Marcus, issuing instructions that would set in motion the machinery of retaliation. "But first, we secure what matters. Lily stays in this hospital until she's fully recovered with round-the-clock security. You stay with her. I handle Varga." "Victor, this isn't negotiable, Mila. You came back because you needed protection. Now you're getting it, but that means you follow my protocols. You stay where I can keep you safe while I eliminate the threat." Mila's jaw tightened, but she didn't argue. She understood the math, understood that her skill set didn't include urban warfare against a criminal organization. "How long will it take? To end this?" 72 hours. Maybe less if things go perfectly. Victor moved toward the door. "I need to deal with the police, then I have some business to handle. Marcus will coordinate security here. Don't leave this room without his clearance." Wait, Mila caught his arm. There's something you need to know about Ethan, about why I think he gave up the information. Victor paused, his hand on the door handle. He called me 6 months ago, like I said, but I didn't tell you everything. He wasn't just in debt, he was being threatened. The people he owed money to, they told him they were going to kill him, slowly. And Ethan, he's weak, but he's still my brother, and he was terrified. Mila's voice cracked. I should have helped him. I should have found a way to protect him without putting Lily at risk. But I didn't. And now he's sitting in one of your rooms waiting for you to decide if he lives or dies. What are you asking me to do? I'm asking you to remember that he's not evil. He's just broken and scared, and he made terrible choices because he couldn't see any other way out. Mila met his eyes. I'm asking for mercy, not for his sake, but because Lily deserves to grow up knowing that her father isn't a man who executes family members for being weak. Victor considered this, weighing the tactical reality against the principle Mila was invoking. Ethan Hart had betrayed them, had put Lily in danger, had given Varga the information he needed to launch his assault. By every standard Victor lived by, that deserved death. But Mila was right about one thing. The person Victor became in the next 72 hours would shape the man Lily grew up knowing. And whatever else he was, whatever he had to do to protect his family, he didn't want his daughter to see him as a monster. I'll deal with Ethan personally, Victor said finally, but I won't promise mercy. I'll promise justice. There's a difference. He left before Mila could respond, stepping into the hallway where 2 uniformed officers and a detective in a rumpled suit were waiting with varying degrees of impatience. The detective stepped forward, badge already out. Victor Kane? Detective Sarah Morrison. We need to talk about what happened at your property tonight. Of course. I want to cooperate fully. Victor gestured toward a nearby consultation room. Shall we? They spent 20 minutes going through the basics. Victor's statement that his property had been attacked, his assertion of self-defense, his willingness to provide whatever evidence the police needed. His lawyer arrived halfway through and ensured that nothing Victor said would create legal complications later. The detective was sharp, asking pointed questions about Victor's business, about why someone would launch a military-style assault on his property, about the kinds of enemies a man accumulated that would justify this level of violence. Victor answered truthfully when he could and deflected when he couldn't, walking the line between cooperation and self-incrimination. Finally, Detective Morrison closed her notebook. We'll need you to come to the station tomorrow for a more formal statement. And Mr. Kane, I should tell you, we found evidence at your property suggesting this wasn't just a home invasion. There were professional weapons, tactical equipment, coordination that speaks to organized crime involvement. I'm aware. Which means we'll be investigating not just tonight's assault, but the broader context. Your business operations, your associates, your enemies. She met his eyes. I've been a detective for 15 years. I know who you are, what you do, and I know that men in your position don't call the police when they have problems. They solve them privately. Is there a question in there, Detective? Just a warning. Whatever you're planning to do in response to tonight, whatever retaliation you're considering, it's going to happen in my city where I can see it. So I'm asking you, as someone who would prefer not to spend the next month cleaning up bodies, to let the law handle this. Victor smiled, and it was almost genuine. I appreciate the concern, Detective, but I'm a victim here. My home was destroyed, my family was threatened. All I want is to keep my daughter safe and rebuild what was taken from me. Detective Morrison didn't look convinced, but she didn't push further. She left with her officers, leaving Victor alone with his lawyer. Daniel Reeves was 60, silver-haired, and had been keeping Victor out of prison for a decade. That was remarkably restrained for you. I half expected you to start making threats. I don't make threats. I make promises. Victor checked his phone again. Marcus had sent an update. The team was securing a new location, a secondary property that Varga didn't know about. How bad is the legal exposure? Manageable. You have clear evidence of defending your property against armed assault. The weapons charges will be complicated, but with the right narrative, we can make most of them disappear. Daniel paused. But Victor, if you're planning what I think you're planning, the legal exposure from that will be considerably less manageable. Then make sure I don't get caught. That's not how the law works. It's exactly how the law works for people with enough money and influence. Victor headed for the elevator. Keep the police focused on investigating Varga. Give them enough breadcrumbs that they think they're making progress while I handle the actual problem. He left the hospital through a side entrance where Marcus was waiting with a new vehicle, an unmarked SUV with tinted windows and armor plating that would stop anything short of armor-piercing rounds. Status, Victor said as he climbed in. 8 men operational, 4 in the hospital, 4 dead. We've secured the secondary location, the warehouse district property. It's not as defensible as the estate, but it's unknown to Varga and well-positioned for what comes next. Marcus pulled into traffic. I've also been digging into the trader situation. Cross-referenced everyone who had access to information about the estate with financial records, communication patterns, everything. And? 3 possibilities. Jensen, who took a bullet tonight and is currently in surgery, so probably not him. Davies, who's been with you for 6 years and has never shown any indication of disloyalty. And Rico, who founded the security protocols we've been using. Victor felt cold settle into his chest. Rico. The man who'd driven them from the hospital, who'd created the traffic jam that had allowed them to escape, who'd been at Victor's side for 8 years. Evidence? Circumstantial. Offshore account that received deposits matching the timeline of information leaks. Communications with a burner phone that we've traced to Varga's network. But nothing conclusive. It could be elaborate framing. Or it could be the truth. Victor's mind was racing through implications. If Rico was the traitor, then everything Victor had shared with him over the years, strategies, vulnerabilities, personal information, had been compromised. Where is he now? At the warehouse with the others, helping set up defensive positions. Isolate him. Tell him I need him to run a specific errand, something that requires him to leave the warehouse alone. Then have a team waiting to bring him in for questioning. Marcus nodded and made the call. While he coordinated the extraction, Victor pulled up security footage from the estate assault, reviewing it with fresh eyes, looking for signs he'd missed, for evidence of betrayal. There. A moment during the firefight when Rico's position should have given him a clear shot at 2 of Varga's men, but he'd fired wide instead. It could have been the chaos of combat, could have been bad luck, or it could have been deliberate. They drove in silence for 10 minutes before Marcus spoke again. Boss, I have to ask, what's the end game here? Varga's not going to back down just because we hit him hard. He'll retaliate, escalate, and we're already operating with diminished resources. The end game is that Varga dies and his organization collapses. Victor's voice was matter of fact. Everything else is just tactical details. You're talking about a full-scale war. That means casualties, collateral damage, attention from law enforcement we can't control. I know exactly what it means. Victor turned to look at Marcus. But consider the alternative. I let Varga live. I negotiate some kind of truce. I give up territory or money or influence to buy peace. What does that teach every other ambitious criminal in this city? That Victor Kane can be pressured. That threatening his family is effective leverage. That I'm willing to compromise when pushed hard enough. It teaches them you're rational. It teaches them I'm weak. Victor's expression hardened. And weakness in this business is a death sentence. Better to fight now. To make an example so brutal that no one ever tries this again. They arrived at the warehouse, a sprawling industrial building in a neighborhood that had seen better days. Marcus had chosen well. Lots of sight lines, multiple exits, positioned in a way that made surveillance difficult. Inside, Victor's remaining people were setting up operations. Weapons cleaned and laid out, communications equipment being tested, maps of the city marked with Varga's known locations. It looked like a military command center, which was essentially what it had become. Rico was waiting near the entrance, looking concerned. Boss, Marcus said you needed me for something? Walk with me. Victor led him toward a back office, away from the others. Marcus followed at a discreet distance, his hand near his weapon. Once they were inside the office with the door closed, Victor turned to face Rico directly. I'm going to ask you a question, and I want you to think very carefully before you answer, because your life depends on getting this right. Rico's expression shifted from concerned to wary. Boss, what's this about? It's about the traitor who's been feeding Varga information. The person who told him about the estate, about our defensive capabilities, about Mila and Lily. Victor's voice was soft, dangerous. It's about the offshore account with deposits that match every major intelligence leak we've suffered. And it's about whether you're going to tell me the truth before I have to get it from you the hard way. The color drained from Rico's face. For a moment, he looked like he might deny everything, might try to talk his way out. Then his shoulders sagged and something broke in his expression. "They have my daughter," Rico said quietly. "Varga's people. They took her 3 months ago. Said they'd kill her if I didn't cooperate." Victor felt rage building beneath his control, but he kept his voice level. "You should have come to me." "I know, but they showed me photos, videos of her being held, being hurt, and they said if I told anyone, if I tried to get help, she'd die." Rico's voice cracked. "She's 8 years old, boss. What was I supposed to do?" "You were supposed to trust that I could handle it, that I had the resources and the will to get her back safely." Victor moved closer. "Instead, you betrayed me. You gave Varga the information he needed to attack my home, to threaten my daughter. You put Lily in danger to protect your own child." "I didn't have a choice." "There's always a choice." Victor pulled out his phone and showed Rico a photo. A little girl with dark hair and frightened eyes, sitting in what looked like a basement. "Is this her? Is this your daughter?" Rico's face crumbled. "Yes. That's Maria. Where did you get that?" "I have sources everywhere, including inside Varga's organization." Victor pocketed the phone. "Your daughter is being held at a location on the south side. 3 guards, minimal security. Varga thought you were too scared to act, too isolated to get help." "You know where she is?" "I've known for 2 weeks. I've been monitoring the situation, waiting for the right moment to extract her." Victor's expression was cold. "What I didn't know was who the traitor was. Now I do." Rico dropped to his knees, tears streaming down his face. "Please, boss, please don't hurt her. She's innocent in all this. Whatever you do to me, whatever punishment I deserve, just please get her out of there." Victor studied the man kneeling before him, measuring the genuine anguish against the very real betrayal. Rico had given Varga the information that had led to the assault on the estate, to the deaths of Victor's men, to the moment when Lily had nearly died from an infection because they couldn't get proper medical care. By every code Victor lived by, Rico deserved execution. But Rico had also served faithfully for 8 years before his daughter was taken, had only betrayed Victor when faced with an impossible choice. And Victor, standing in that hospital room watching his own daughter fight for breath, understood exactly what desperation felt like. "Here's what's going to happen," Victor said. "You're going to give me every piece of information you pass to Varga. Every detail, every communication, everything they know about my operations. Then you're going to help me plan the assault that takes down his organization. And if you do those things perfectly, if you hold nothing back, I'll get your daughter out safely." Rico looked up, hope and disbelief warring in his expression. "You'd do that? After everything I've done?" "I do it for Maria. She doesn't deserve to pay for your mistakes." Victor pulled Rico to his feet. "But understand this. You work for me now until this debt is paid. Every operation, every risk, every dangerous assignment I need handled, you volunteer first. And if you ever betray me again, I won't just kill you. I'll make sure you watch everyone you love suffer first." "Yes, boss. Anything. I'll do anything." Victor turned to Marcus. "Get him set up with communications equipment. I want a full debrief on everything Varga knows. Then I want Rico to help us plan the extraction of his daughter and the simultaneous assault on Varga's primary operations." Marcus led Rico away, leaving Victor alone in the office. He pulled out his phone and made a call to one of his most trusted operatives, a woman named Sarah Chen, who specialized in hostage extractions. "I need you for a job," Victor said when she answered. 8-year-old girl, held at a location I'll send you. 3 guards. I want her extracted tonight safely and brought to the warehouse. Consider it done." Victor ended the call and returned to the main floor where his team was waiting. They all looked at him, waiting for orders, waiting for the plan that would either save them or destroy them. "Gather around," Victor said, and they assembled quickly. "Tonight we were attacked. We lost people, lost property, lost the illusion that we were untouchable. Silas Varga thought he could destroy us by taking away our fortress. He was wrong. He pulled up a digital map of the city on a large monitor, marking locations with red dots. These are Varga's operations. His clubs, his drug distribution points, his money laundering facilities, his weapons storage. In the next 48 hours, we're going to hit all of them, simultaneously. Overwhelming force, maximum damage, no mercy. Marcus stepped forward. Boss, coordinating that many operations at once is exactly what Varga won't expect. He thinks we're wounded, desperate, disorganized. He's waiting for us to make a defensive move, to hide and regroup. Instead, we're going to cut the head off his organization and watch the body die. Victor turned to Rico, who was watching with a mixture of guilt and determination. You're going to help us. You know Varga's security protocols, his response patterns, his contingencies. You're going to tell us exactly how to hit him where it hurts most. Rico nodded. His primary revenue comes from drug distribution. If you can shut down his supply lines, you cut off his cash flow. Without money, he can't pay his people, can't maintain loyalty. Distribution points first, then. Victor marked additional locations on the map. We hit them hard. We burn product. We eliminate anyone who resists. Send a message that working for Varga is a death sentence. For the next 2 hours, they planned. Victor divided his limited resources across multiple operations, coordinated timing, established contingencies for when things went wrong. It was the kind of complex tactical operation that required perfect execution and more than a little luck. But Victor had always made his own luck. At 3 a.m, Sarah Chen called back. Target extracted. The girl is safe, unharmed. Bringing her to your location now. Victor felt a weight lift from his chest. Good work. What about the guards? Neutralized. They won't be reporting back to Varga. Excellent. Make sure Maria is comfortable when she arrives. And Sarah, no one tells Rico his daughter is safe until after the operations are complete. I need him focused. Understood? Victor ended the call and found Rico still working on the operational details, his face drawn with exhaustion and fear. We have teams moving on the distribution points in 2 hours. I need you with Marcus's unit. Your knowledge of their security protocols could save lives. I'll be ready, boss. At 5 a.m, as the sun began to rise over the city, Victor's teams moved into position. 8 simultaneous operations, coordinated down to the minute, designed to cripple Varga's organization in a single devastating blow. Victor led the assault on Varga's primary club, the location where the man himself was most likely to be found. They hit it with overwhelming force. 12 men, heavily armed, moving with military precision through the building. Resistance was immediate. Varga's guards opened fire from defensive positions, trying to hold the entrance. But Victor's people had trained for this, had prepared for exactly this kind of close-quarters combat. They advanced systematically, clearing rooms, eliminating threats, pushing deeper into the building. Victor moved through the chaos with cold focus, his weapon an extension of his will. He'd spent 15 years perfecting the art of violence, and now he unleashed it without reservation or mercy. They reached Varga's office on the 3rd floor to find it empty. The man himself had fled, abandoning his headquarters when the assault began. Coward, Victor thought, but a smart coward. Varga had survived this long by knowing when to run. Victor's phone buzzed. Marcus, reporting from the distribution point assault. All targets secured. Minimal casualties on our side. We found ledgers, financial records, enough evidence to trace Varga's entire supply network. Another call. Davies, from the weapons storage facility. Building secured. Enough firepower here to outfit a small army. Do you want us to hold position or destroy it? Destroy it. Burn everything. More calls, more reports. One by one, Varga's operations fell. His revenue streams cut off, his resources seized or destroyed, his people killed or scattered. By noon, it was over. Silas Varga's criminal empire, built over 15 years, had been dismantled in 6 hours. Victor stood in the ruins of Varga's office, looking at the destruction he'd wrought, and felt no satisfaction. This wasn't about victory or revenge. It was about sending a message that would echo through the city's criminal underworld for years to come. Touch Victor Kane's family, and there would be no negotiation, no compromise, no mercy, only complete and total annihilation. His phone rang, an unknown number, but Victor recognized the pattern. Varga, calling from whatever hole he'd crawled into. "You've made your point, Kane." Varga's voice was tight with barely controlled rage. "You've destroyed everything I built. Congratulations." "This isn't over," Victor said quietly. "This was just the first part. What more do you want? You've already taken everything. I want you dead. I want every person who helped you, every person who knew about the assault on my home, every person who represented a threat to my daughter. I want them all gone." Victor's voice was cold iron. "You tried to teach me a lesson about power and territory. Now I'm teaching you one about family. The lesson is simple. You should have stayed away from mine. If you kill me, my organization will retaliate. You'll start a war that never ends." "Your organization doesn't exist anymore. I just spent 6 hours proving that." Victor walked to the window, looking out at the city. "And you're not important enough to start a war over. You're just a cautionary tale now. An example of what happens when someone threatens what I protect. So what happens now? You hunt me down while I hide? This becomes a game of cat and mouse until one of us makes a mistake?" "No." Victor smiled. "This becomes much simpler than that. I'm going to tell you exactly where I'll be tonight. The hospital where my daughter is recovering. I'll be in her room, unarmed, unguarded, completely vulnerable. And you're welcome to come try to finish what you started." Silence on the line. Then, carefully, "That's a trap." "Of course it's a trap. But here's the thing, Silas. You don't have a choice. You can run, hide, try to disappear. But I'll find you eventually. I have the resources, the time, and the motivation. Or you can come to the hospital tonight, take your shot, and maybe get lucky." Victor paused. "Either way, this ends. The only question is whether you face it on your feet or spend the rest of your short life looking over your shoulder." More silence. Victor could almost hear Varga's mind working, calculating odds, weighing options. "Midnight," Varga said finally. "I'll be there. I'll be waiting." Victor ended the call and immediately dialed Marcus. "I need you to set up a defensive perimeter around the hospital. I want sniper positions on every approach, surveillance on all entrances, and a response team ready to move the moment Varga shows himself." "You're using yourself as bait." "I'm using Lily's room as bait. I'll be there, but I won't be alone." Victor checked his watch. 10 hours until midnight. "And Marcus, bring Rico. When this is done, when Varga is handled, I want him there to see his daughter." The rest of the day was preparation. Victor returned to the hospital, checked on Lily, who was awake now, fever-broken, looking at him with those serious dark eyes that were so much like his own, and coordinated with Marcus on the security arrangements. Mila watched him work, her expression unreadable. "You're setting a trap." "I'm ending a threat. By putting yourself in danger, by making our daughter's hospital room into a battlefield." Mila's voice was tight. "This isn't protection, Victor. This is revenge." "It's both." Victor met her eyes. "And it's necessary. If I let Varga walk away from this, if I let him survive after what he tried to do, every criminal in this city will know that threatening my family only results in property damage and temporary inconvenience. The message needs to be absolute. And if something goes wrong, if Varga gets past your security, gets into this room while Lily is here, that won't happen. You can't guarantee that." "I can and I do." Victor's voice was certain. "Because I've spent the last 12 hours destroying everything Varga built, and he knows that if he comes here tonight, he's not walking away alive. The only question is whether he's desperate enough to try anyway." Mila looked at Lily, sleeping peacefully in her crib, then back at Victor. "I trusted you to protect her. Don't make me regret that." As evening fell, Victor's team moved into position. Snipers on rooftops overlooking the hospital. Surveillance teams monitoring every approach. Armed personnel disguised as hospital staff, positioned at key points throughout the building. It was the most comprehensive security operation Victor had ever coordinated, all focused on a single hospital room where his daughter slept. At 11:30, Marcus reported movement. "Unknown vehicle approaching from the east. 2 occupants. One matches Varga's description. Let them approach. I want to see how they play this." Victor watched through linked security feeds as Varga's car pulled into the hospital parking lot. The man himself got out, looking around nervously, clearly aware he was walking into a trap, but apparently convinced he had no better options. His companion stayed in the car, a driver, probably, ready to make a quick escape if things went wrong. Varga walked toward the hospital entrance, his movements careful and deliberate. He was armed. Victor could see the bulge of a weapon beneath his jacket, but he wasn't making any aggressive moves. "He's coming in alone," Marcus reported. "Should we intercept?" "No, let him come to me." Varga entered the hospital, made his way through the lobby, took the elevator to the 4th floor where Lily's room was located. Every step was monitored, every movement tracked by Victor's security team. He reached the door to Lily's room and paused, his hand on the handle. Then he opened it and stepped inside. Victor was waiting, sitting in a chair beside Lily's crib, his weapon resting on his lap, but not aimed. Mila had taken Lily to another room for the night, leaving Victor alone in what appeared to be a vulnerable position. Varga looked around, noting the empty crib, the absence of guards, the apparent isolation. "Where is she? Where's your daughter?" "Somewhere safe." "Did you really think I'd leave her here during this?" "You said you'd be here, unarmed and unguarded." "I said I'd be here. I never said anything about being stupid." Victor gestured to the window. "There are 3 sniper rifles pointed at you right now. The door you just walked through is the only exit, and there are armed men in the hallway waiting to seal it. You came here to kill me, but you're not leaving this room alive." Varga's hand moved toward his weapon, but he froze when red laser dots appeared on his chest, visible even through his shirt. "Don't," Victor said quietly. "I want to talk first. You can die after." "What's left to talk about? You've already won. You destroyed everything I built, killed my people, taken everything I worked for." "I want to know why. Why go after my daughter? You could have come at me directly, challenged me for territory, fought me in ways that don't involve 8-month-old babies. So why did you choose this path?" Varga laughed, bitter and defeated. "Because direct challenges don't work against you. Everyone knows that. You're too strong, too prepared, too ruthless. The only way to beat Victor Kane is to find the thing he cares about more than winning and use it against him." "And you thought that was Lily. I thought it was the weakness that would finally break you. The thing that would make you choose wrong, make you vulnerable." Varga's expression twisted. "But I was wrong. All it did was make you more dangerous, more willing to burn everything down rather than compromise." "You're right about that." Victor stood, his weapon now aimed directly at Varga. "Lily isn't my weakness. She's my certainty. Everything I do from this point forward, every decision I make, it's all filtered through one simple question. Does this make her safer or not? And killing me makes her safer? Yes. Because dead men don't retaliate, don't plot revenge, don't spend years planning their comeback. Dead men are just dead." Varga closed his eyes. "Then finish it. I'm not going to beg." "I know you're not. You're too proud for that." Victor's finger moved to the trigger. "But before you die, I want you to understand something. This isn't about revenge or territory or pride. This is about making sure that when my daughter grows up, when she asks me about the world I've made for her, I can tell her honestly that I removed every threat, eliminated every danger, did everything in my power to keep her safe. You were a threat. Now you won't be." He pulled the trigger 3 times in rapid succession. Varga dropped without a sound. The room erupted with activity. Marcus and his team swept in, securing the scene, confirming the kill. Outside, Victor could hear the driver's car screeching away, fleeing the parking lot. "Let him go," Victor told Marcus. "He'll spread the story. Let everyone know what happens when you threaten my family." They cleaned up the scene with practiced efficiency, removing evidence, bribing hospital security, ensuring that when the police arrived, they'd find nothing conclusive. Varga's body would be discovered in an alley miles away, another casualty of gang violence. Victor left the hospital through a service entrance and drove to the warehouse where Rico was waiting, still unaware that his daughter had been rescued. Sarah Chen met him at the door. "Maria's inside. She's scared but physically unharmed. I've had a counselor talking with her, helping her process what happened. Bring Rico to me. It's time." They brought Rico to a room where Maria was sitting, drawing pictures with crayons that Sarah had provided. The moment Rico saw her, his legs gave out. He fell to his knees, sobbing, reaching for his daughter with shaking hands. Maria looked up, recognized her father, and ran into his arms, crying, "Daddy, Daddy, you came for me." Victor watched the reunion, feeling something tighten in his chest. This was what it was all for. This moment when a father held his daughter, when family was reunited, when the threats were gone and safety was restored. "You have a choice to make," Victor told Rico quietly. "You can take Maria and disappear. I'll give you money, new identities, a fresh start somewhere far from this city. Or you can stay, work off your debt, help me rebuild what was lost. Either way, your daughter is safe. Varga is dead, and the people who took her are never coming back." Rico looked up at Victor, his face streaked with tears. "I stay. I work off the debt. I owe you everything. You owe me loyalty, and you're going to prove it every day until I trust you again." Victor turned to leave, then paused. "But Rico, understand this. If you ever betray me again, if you ever put my family at risk again, I won't give you a choice. I'll just end you, painfully." "I understand, boss. It won't happen again." Victor left them there, father and daughter reunited, and drove back to the hospital. Mila was in a private room with Lily, the baby finally sleeping peacefully, without fever, without fear, just innocent rest. "Is it over?" Mila asked as he entered. "It's over. Varga is dead. His organization is scattered. The traitor has been handled. No one else is coming for us." Mila studied his face, searching for something. "You killed him yourself." "Yes." "Do you feel better? Does it fix anything?" "It doesn't fix what happened, but it prevents what could happen next." Victor moved to Lily's crib, looking down at his sleeping daughter. "She's safe now. That's all that matters." Mila came to stand beside him. "What happens now? We can't go back to the estate. We can't pretend this didn't happen. We rebuild. I have other properties, other resources. We establish a new home, better security, stronger protections." Victor reached down and gently touched Lily's hand. Her fingers curled around his automatically. "And we raise our daughter somewhere she doesn't have to be afraid." "Together?" Mila's voice was hesitant. "You want us to be a family after everything?" "I don't know how to be a family," Victor admitted. "I've spent 15 years being alone, being untouchable, being the thing other people feared. But I look at her and I know I want to learn. I want to be whatever she needs me to be." Mila was quiet for a long moment. Then she reached out and took Victor's free hand. "Then we learn together. We figure out how to give her something better than the worlds we came from." A week later, Victor stood in a new property he'd acquired on the outskirts of the city. A house instead of a fortress, defensible but designed for living rather than warfare. The team had spent days making it secure, installing the kind of comprehensive security that would keep Lily safe without making her feel like she was living in a prison. Mila was inside, setting up the nursery, hanging curtains and arranging furniture with the kind of domesticity that still felt foreign to Victor. Lily was in a portable crib nearby, watching her mother with those serious dark eyes, occasionally making sounds that might someday become words. Marcus approached, his expression carefully neutral. The last of Varga's lieutenants was found this morning. He'd been trying to reorganize what was left of the operation. Our people convinced him to pursue other career opportunities. Define convinced. He's relocating to another state, far from here. We made it clear that staying would be unhealthy. Victor nodded. What about the police investigation? Detective Morrison is still asking questions, but she has no evidence that connects you to Varga's death. As far as the official record shows, you've been cooperating fully with their investigation into the assault on your property. Marcus paused. She knows you're responsible, boss, but she can't prove it. That's all I need. Reasonable deniability and enough uncertainty that pursuing it becomes more trouble than it's worth. What about Ethan Hart? He's still in custody at one of our facilities. Victor had almost forgotten about Mila's brother, locked away while Victor had dismantled Varga's organization. Bring him here. I'll deal with him personally. An hour later, Ethan was brought to the house, still looking terrified but less beaten than before. They'd given him food, water, medical attention, just enough humanity to make the contrast starker. Victor met him in a ground-floor office, with Mila present at her insistence. You put my daughter in danger, Victor said without preamble. You gave our enemies the information they needed to attack us. People died because of your weakness. Ethan nodded, not even trying to defend himself. I know. I'm sorry. I know that's not enough. But I am. You're right. It's not enough. Victor pulled out a folder and slid it across the desk. That's documentation of your debt to Varga's people. The people I killed. As far as the financial world is concerned, that debt no longer exists. Ethan looked at the papers, confused. I don't understand. You're free. The debt that got you into this situation is erased. You have a chance to start over. Why would you do that? After everything? Victor glanced at Mila, then back to Ethan. Because my daughter deserves to grow up knowing her uncle. Because family matters, even when family disappoints you. And because I'm trying to learn how to be something other than a man who solves every problem with violence. Mila's hand found his, squeezing gently. But understand this, Victor continued, his voice hardening. This is the only chance you get. If you ever put Lily at risk again, if you ever make another choice that threatens her safety, I won't be merciful. I'll finish what I should have finished the moment I learned about your betrayal. I understand. Thank you. I'll never... Just go, Ethan. Get your life together. Be someone your niece can be proud of. They watched him leave, escorted by Marcus's people who would ensure he actually left the city and started fresh somewhere else. That was generous, Mila said quietly. That was practical. Lily grows up knowing she has family beyond just us, and you don't have to live with the guilt of your brother's death. Victor stood, moving to the window where he could see the grounds, the security perimeter, the controlled environment he'd created. Besides, I've done enough killing lately. I'd like to try something else for a change. Like what? Like being a father. Like building something instead of destroying it. Like teaching Lily that the world can be safe and beautiful instead of violent and terrifying. Mila moved to stand beside him. You know that's going to be complicated. You can't just stop being who you are. I know. But I can try to be more than that. For her. They stood together in silence, watching through the window as the sun set over the property. Somewhere in the house, Lily started crying. Not from fear or pain, just the ordinary demands of an 8-month-old who wanted attention. Victor moved automatically, heading toward the nursery, drawn by that sound in a way that would have seemed impossible a week ago. Mila followed, and together they entered the room where their daughter was crying. Victor lifted Lily from the crib, feeling her weight in his arms, her warmth against his chest. She looked up at him with those dark eyes that were learning to recognize him, learning to trust that he would be there when she needed him. Hey, little one, he said softly. I'm here. I'm always going to be here. Lily's crying subsided into hiccups, then into silence as she settled against him. And Victor felt something he hadn't felt in 15 years of violence and survival and ruthless control. He felt at peace. Not the peace of victory or the satisfaction of defeating enemies. The peace of knowing that everything he'd fought for, everything he'd sacrificed and destroyed and protected, had led to this moment. Standing in a nursery with his daughter in his arms, and the woman he'd once lost but now had back. The fortress was gone. The empire was diminished. The reputation for being untouchable had been replaced by a reputation for being deadly when his family was threatened. But none of that mattered. What mattered was Lily's hand gripping his finger. What mattered was Mila's arm around his waist. What mattered was the future they were going to build together, away from the violence and the fear and the constant warfare. Victor Kane had spent his entire adult life being alone, being feared, being the thing that lived in the shadows and made other people disappear. Now he was a father. And somehow, impossibly, that felt like the most dangerous thing he'd ever become. Because Lily gave him something he'd never had before. Something to lose that mattered more than survival, more than power, more than anything else in the world. And Victor knew, with absolute certainty, that he would do anything to protect that, would burn the world down if necessary, would become a monster if that's what it took. But for now, standing in the peaceful nursery with his family around him, he could just be Dad. And that was enough.